The following podcast may contain adult language and an abundance of salt, so get your flux capacitors ready because we're talking Back to the Future.
Can we swear now?
No.
Are we at the one? Are we in the PG-13
PG-13. You guys did so good with WandaVision.
So
Not a single swear word came out.
I get one F-bomb?
He's got like 4 shots in him now.
Is that it?
There's no way. He's going to take all of our F-bombs.
All right,
and
guys.
we're on video, so I can go,
You could flip people off. I don't know. What does YouTube take that down?
I don't know. They
I don't
probably
know.
do.
I don't know anything about YouTube.
Edit that out. Okay, put like a pumpkin on my hand or something.
Put a bottle of Jack over his middle finger.
There you go.
I had to booze it up for these movies.
What? How dare you?
I'm so confused.
Don't think about it.
All this flip-flopping
Kate
back
is
and
just
forth
going
in
to go
time.
into like a 2-hour-long
no,
time
he's
space
not.
continuum
Seriously,
timeline.
absolutely
This is how
is
time
not.
travel goes.
This is why this movie sucks.
Is this Star Trek space travel, or is this what's the?
What are the rules of
yeah.
their space travel?
What time travel continuum rules are they using for these episodes?
All right, guys.
But first, a word from our sponsor.
Welcome and thank you for listening to another episode of the Salty Nerd Podcast. I am your host, the Salty Nerd, and like I said, we're talking about Back to the Future, Part 1, 2, and 3. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. I'm joined, as always, by my illustrious co-host, starting with the barbarian drunk space Viking.
Whoa!
Masticator of masticators.
Masticator extraordinaire. What's up, V? How you doing, man?
I'm drinking.
Champagne or a mimosa.
We're very fancy on the Salty Nerd
We're
podcast.
celebrating.
I think it's Spike's Tang. That's what it looks like.
All I had was tangerine juice.
Is that
It's the
why it
same
tastes
thing.
different?
It's the same thing.
Okay, I gotcha.
I
Welcome to
just
the
have
show.
to say before we get going,
Yeah,
this was some of Huey Lewis's best work.
of course it was.
Agreed.
Yes, I agree.
He was amazing. In this
Power of
movie.
Love music.
Huey
Amazing.
Lewis was the first concert I ever went
Really?
to in person.
Wow,
Yeah.
you're so
And I snuck
old.
in.
No.
I want a new drug.
I'm afraid you're just too darn loud. Love that. This is such a great scene. All right, I'm also joined by the ambassador of estrogen, Jude.
Hello.
Love your shirt.
Oh, thank you.
Showed off to the peeps.
I'm your
Density.
God damn it!
This show's rated
tits on the
PG-13.
Hi, everybody. We're on video.
I don't know what you want me to do with that.
Pretty soon she's gonna flop them out on the table.
My poor tits trigger Vader every fucking week.
There's your one.
Flop them out.
I had to get it out before you stole it.
Oh, man. All right, I'm also joined by the author extraordinaire, Matthew Kadish. What's up, man?
Not much.
I love your responses. They're so tame compared to the other side of the table.
I'm the one controlling the cameras, so like my focus is elsewhere.
The
right
only
now.
one not drinking.
Yeah, he's got his director hat
hey,
on.
everybody.
Yeah, also the only one not drinking. Is it annoying to be the only sober one on the
Sobe?
podcast?
What does it like me a Sobe?
Today's podcast is brought to you by Sobe Energy Water.
Not really.
Not really.
Off the rails already.
All right, guys, let's get into it. Before we dive into these awesome 80s classics, quick word from our sponsors. Welcome back, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to be talking about Back to the Future, the 1980s classic starring Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. And I freaking love this movie, and what I wanted to do today is kind of get an idea of everybody's first experience or their favorite experience with these movies, and I'll start, just kind of get things rolling. A big shout out to my older sister, Audrey. I love you, Audrey. Me and her, she raised me. She's 17 or 18 by the time I was born, or something like that. So she's my big sister, and she created that love of all things 80s for me. And I grew up watching 80s movies with her, Back to the Future, Better Off Dead, John Cusack movies, stuff like that. And when the 30th anniversary of this movie franchise came out, they were showing the entire franchise down there at the South Point Theater. And they had like a full-size DeLorean there. It's all done up. They had a couple actors from the movies. They had cosplayers, all kinds of cool stuff. So me and her, she flew all the way from Pennsylvania out here to Vegas and went to this event with me. I dressed up like Doc Brown. I had, from the second movie, I had a big yellow suit with a red shirt and a clear tie and like the whole get up. And we went to the movie. She dressed up like Jennifer, and we went to the movies, and we sat through all 3 of these movies at once. And it was one of my favorite experiences going to the movies, especially with my older sister. So much fun. I love this franchise. Everything about it just screams fun, nostalgic, like my childhood is in these 3 movies. So I had a great time. My only regret about that experience was I was wearing a giant yellow rubber suit for 6 hours in a movie theater, and I was hot and sweaty and gross. But it was totally worth it.
So it's just like when you get off work.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Okay, V, what's your experience with these this trilogy? Do you have a nostalgic memory of these?
I really don't.
I feel so bad for you.
We've had this discussion.
Not for the new listeners.
This
Vader doesn't feel things.
No, I do.
Dare you?
Listen, I get it. I get the nostalgia for this movie. They're awesome, fun, well made, well written, extremely well. Did I say well done already?
But that's okay.
But they're good movies. They're not. They just never clicked for me like they did with you. I don't know. Maybe it was just the age I was when they came out. I think I was 15 when the first one came out, 85, right?
Yeah.
Then the other ones were 90, 91.
No, the last one was 90.
89 and 90.
So it's like when I was 19, 20, I really wasn't caring about Michael J. Fox movies.
Makes me sad.
I was busy going to concerts and doing stuff I probably shouldn't be doing.
Badass shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But these movies never really resonated with me like they should. Because I feel like I should be in that group of people that really love these movies.
Yeah, like 17 years old.
Because I'm not saying they're not good movies. They're great. They're great movies. But they've always been kind of like third tier fandom kind of movies for me.
Explain that. What do you mean?
Well, there's like Star Wars and Star Trek. And then
This is the massive fandoms.
Yeah. And then there's, everything else. And this is like in the middle of everything else for me.
Okay.
This is like kind of like maybe Sarah with like your other favorite Jurassic Park kind of level movies for me. So, but they're fun. They're cool. Okay. And I completely like them and think they're good. Maybe it's just Michael J. Fox. I've never been a big Michael J. Fox guy. My favorite movie with him in it is the Peter Jackson movie where he's
The Frighteners.
The Frighteners. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, which we haven't watched on the show ever, and we should.
We probably should.
We will.
So
Jude,
we'll watch it with bad taste and
No, we will
not
not.
watching Bad Taste again.
We absolutely will not do that.
Jude, what is your experience with Back to the Future?
I have seen this movie a million times. This is my dad's favorite movie. So
Nice.
Growing up, this was on a lot. I can quote this movie backwards and forwards. And I still love it. And every time I see it, I think of my dad and just hanging out in the living room, him in his lazy boy chair, and us just watching this movie on repeat throughout my teenage years.
Nice. Yeah, I let my 5-year-old watch this movie, and he freaking loves it, dude. He like sings the theme song in his head when he's walking around the house. And I had to he started watching it like kids do. They watch movies over and over and over again. They're like, let's watch Back to the Future. And then he started talking like Biff. And he's like, that son of a bitch. And I'm like, oh, okay. No. Let's not watch that movie so much. But no, I'm so happy that I was able to pass that love on to the next generation. Like my kid loves Michael J. Fox. He loves Back to the Future movies. It's one of his favorite along with Jurassic Park. So this is definitely like a staple of my nerd brain, and I have a ton of fun with it. So
I think trying to picture Michael J. Fox as like this semi kind of juvenile delinquent kid doesn't really jive.
Skateboarder, badass.
I don't think he's maybe
Is he Alex P. Keaton to you?
kind of, yeah. I don't know, but
With the elbow pads?
I mean, I can't say that. I can't sit here and say that he was miscast because he wasn't. It just doesn't jive with me. It's like I don't see Michael J. Fox as like this pseudo guitar playing, skateboarding kind of sort of juvenile delinquent kid that they're trying to make him be in the beginning of this movie, because he comes off as completely wholesome.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he doesn't have the edge.
No, that's it. He doesn't have an edge to play what they were trying to make him be.
The wannabe rock star kid.
Right.
The skateboarding wannabe rock star. But you know, it's funny though, because Michael J. Fox actually did play guitar and he did love skateboarding.
Yeah.
So he kind of fit into that mold, but I guess I kind of see what you're saying. He doesn't have that rock
it's
star
also
edge.
important to point out that Michael J. Fox was like the third Marty McFly that they cast.
Yeah.
Originally, they had Anthony C. Hall, something like that. And he never got past the script reading stage. And then they cast Eric Stoltz.
Mm-hmm.
And Eric Stoltz, they actually shot for like 2 weeks with him. And
5 weeks.
5 weeks, something like that. And he was more of that, what Vader was talking about, like, you know, rock and roll rebel type style. And it didn't work. And so they went back and luckily around this time, originally they had approached Michael J. Fox about the role. And because of his commitment to family ties at the time, he wasn't able to do it scheduling wise. But around the time that they fired Stoltz, Meredith Baxter Birney was pregnant. And so like they had to like do a kind of like a hiatus for her pregnancy for the show. And so Michael J. Fox's schedule suddenly opened up. And that basically allowed him to basically shoot this while doing Family Ties at the same time. And it was just kind of like, I think, fate, because in my opinion, he's perfect for this role.
I agree.
So speaking of, Kadish, what was your experience with Back to the Future?
So I was like 7 years old when this movie came out. And so my only experience of this film was on VHS, basically. And this is one of my all-time favorite movies. Like I love this movie. And it had a big impact on me. It was a big impact in me wanting to go into filmmaking. And even my character, Earthman Jack, who I've written a series of books about, was heavily influenced by Marty McFly, the character of Marty McFly. And, the time travel stuff, which is also in my books and things like that, like all of it was very much influenced by, this trilogy of film. And I've spent time studying these movies. Like when I was in film school, I'd watch these movies a million times and dissect them apart. And the screenplay for this movie is almost perfect. Like, in fact, it's basically taught in UCLA screenwriting classes as the perfect screenplay. And like when they teach you about setting up stuff and paying it off and foreshadowing and character arcs and things like that, they use this movie because this movie has all that stuff.
Oh, it's
picture perfect.
It really is incredible, the setup and payoff throughout the whole series.
Yep. Yeah. And even things you're not paying excuse me. Even things you're not paying attention to, like the Twin Pines and Lone Pines, like it's never referenced audibly by anybody in the movie, but if you're watching it, you're like, oh, that's set up and payoff from when it was Lone Pines and he crashed into the pine tree. Now it's Single Pine. Like it's cool stuff like that you can tell that these screenwriters really cared.
It's also stuff like, for instance, every movie has a scene where they lay out the plan, where they have like the model of the town, and they tell you exactly what they want to happen. Yeah. And so by the time you get to that climax, you can start having stuff go wrong, and you can start having obstacles thrown in there, and the audience knows what's supposed to happen because they bothered to explain it to the audience early on in the film.
Right.
And that gives them the freedom to mess with it later on because the audience has a clear idea of what's going to happen. So strictly from a writing perspective, like these movies are so picture perfect that you have to appreciate them in terms of their filmmaking.
They spend 90 seconds telling us the whole point of the movie. This is what's supposed to happen, and then they're just going to fill in the fun stuff.
They let the movie play out.
It's really brilliant. It really is done very well.
Yeah.
And so few movies do that nowadays.
They gloss over.
It's like people have forgotten how to tell a decent story.
I think they I don't want to sound like I'm disparaging the audience, but I think film writers or writers now, thank you, film creators nowadays I feel like they're thinking that the audience has been watching movies as long as I've been watching movies. So they should be able to pick up on this kind of thing, but they forget the very basics. Like, let's set this up so that anybody can just step into this movie and catch right on and know exactly what we're trying to do, as opposed to just assuming that they're all like the writer and they all already know these things. And this is, it's in my head. So everybody else should be able to tell what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to put on the screen. But this is, it's just so much freaking fun, dude. I never get tired of watching this movie.
These are fun movies.
But even like every character in the movie has a character arc. Every character transforms by the time the movie's over, and it's a satisfactory transition. It's not something that just comes out of nowhere. So like, I mean, this movie is just like, it's a 5-star masterpiece in my opinion. Vader says that there's like it's like third level fandom. I disagree with that. I totally disagree with that, because I think that it might not kind of encourage like major yearly conventions or something like that, but the fandom for Back to the Future is just so hardcore. And I think that the reason that it's not a bigger thing is because Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, the two producers and writers behind this movie, they are the gatekeepers to this, and they haven't allowed it to kind of get kind of screwed over by Hollywood by making it a bigger thing, like what happened with Star Wars and Disney. They haven't allowed a remake to happen. They haven't allowed a sequel to happen. So they've been very protective of this, and I think that might have kind of kept it from reaching like the level of fandom that I think Vader was looking for.
Well, I hope they never do.
Well, not in their lifetimes.
Because these movies are special.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong when I say third level or second level or whatever. What I mean by that is just, it's not, the fandom isn't up there with the big 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of different.
I get what you're saying.
There's a lot of different levels.
You can't.
But everybody who likes Star Wars that I know loves these movies.
Yeah.
But we're not out there, going to Target and buying every Marty McFly toy that we can find.
Yeah, but
you know what I'm saying? So
I don't know. Do you remember when Jude, when we went to Back to the Future Day, where it was August 25th, 2015, something like that?
That sounds right.
Yeah. And we went to this local casino, and basically it was Back to the Future. People were in cosplay. They had like 3 or 4 different DeLoreans out there.
I have a picture upstairs with me and Doc Brown and me and Biff.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, alternate future Biff.
Yeah.
Nice.
But there's not there's not a Back to the Future con every year at the Rio Convention Center.
Not like Star Trek
or there's not a Back to the Future celebration in Anaheim every year.
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
So
I understand what you're saying.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I'm not taking anything away from people who love these movies, because they're cool. They're good.
Yeah, but the character, like, everyone knows these movies. Everyone knows these characters. The DeLorean's probably one of the most iconic
movie cars
like ever. Like everyone knows Doc Brown.
It's the number one
totally
movie car.
Yeah.
You think so?
Oh yeah.
Over what? I guess yeah. I
Can't even think of
I can't even think of any. But yeah, the Batmobile I guess would be the only other one.
Batmobile. They're right there together, aren't they?
The Batmobile changes though.
Yeah.
The DeLorean's always the same.
Yeah, that's true.
The Radmobile from Encino Man.
Never. Nope.
And in fact, John DeLorean actually sent Robert Zemeckis a thank you letter for immortalizing his car, because I think without this movie, the DeLorean probably would have just been a flash in the pan.
Maybe Kit and General Lee, but not really.
General, yeah. Yeah.
It's
it's so iconic.
They canceled the General Lee, so oh
God, yeah. No,
you're gonna have to edit that out.
No, they're not. No, they're assholes. Yeah.
All right, so
they canceled a car.
Yeah, can we actually talk about the movie?
Yeah, we can talk about the movie.
And
Jude,
maybe not our feelings so much.
Are you ready?
Oh, God.
Jude, are you ready?
I need more booze now.
Tell us what happens in this movie real quick.
1985, Back to the Future. It was rated PG with a runtime of 1 hour and 56 minutes. It had a budget of $19 million. Alex, what do you think it brought in the box?
Michael J. Fox in his prime. I'm going to say $85 million.
Vader?
You are way wrong.
What do you say?
I'm saying like 290, 300 million.
Holy Jesus. In the 1985?
Yeah.
Okay.
This was a big movie.
Jude?
381 million.
God damn.
See, and I was way off and I was under. So.
That's really awesome.
Doc Brown steals some plutonium from Libyan nationalists to power his time machine. During a test run at the mall, he's found, shot, and killed. Marty, his teenage friend, jumps into the time machine to escape the assassins, but when the DeLorean reaches 88 miles per hour, it catapults Marty back to the year 1955. Having only enough plutonium to make one trip, Marty is stuck in 1955 and must find a new way to power the machine in order to get home. Meanwhile, he keeps running into his parents as teenagers, changing history and risking not being born at all. He accidentally interrupts his parents' original meet-cute, causing his mom to fall for him instead of his dad. He's got to get them to fall in love, keep his mom from getting raped by the town bully, and get the DeLorean hooked up to the only thing powerful enough to compare to plutonium, a bolt of lightning.
You guys ready? 1.21 gigawatts.
I was getting there.
Oh, I was so excited.
There's only one man in 1955 who can help Marty, the man who sent him there in the first place. Doc Brown, 30 years younger, is the only man with the power to generate the
1.21 gigawatts. Oh, man.
Discuss.
Okay.
So Vader mentioned Huey Lewis earlier.
Yes.
And I wanted to tell you my story.
Go ahead.
So back in the town where I'm from, in Ohio, there's a big county fair every year. And every year, somebody performs at this fair. In this particular year, my best friend at the time, her name was Stacy, she was working at the fair. And I wanted to go to the fair, so I pretended to work there too. So I just kind of snuck in behind her when she went in, and she was working the concert, and Huey Lewis and the News were playing. So I was actually seating people, but I had no idea what to do. Nice. So I would like look at people's tickets and just seat them anywhere. And then I stayed and enjoyed the concert, but then I stayed after and helped them clean up. And by that time, people kind of caught on that I didn't really work there, and they were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like stacking chairs, and I was like, "I don't know."
I'm just here.
She was my ride home, so I was like, I'm just gonna hang out.
Yeah. Nice. So you got to see Huey Lewis in the News?
Yeah, that was my first concert.
Did they play
ever.
this song from the movie? Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah,
Gosh.
it was sometime in the 90s when this happened. So
right on. Nice. So this was like hot.
I want to say it was like 13 or 14.
Nice. That sounds awesome. That's a good experience.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, one of my, I think was the like most masterful parts of this, and what really sells it is the character of Doc Brown. And I cannot for the life of me think of anybody except for Christopher Lloyd who would be able to pull that character off and make it so lovable. What are you doing, bro?
I'm checking my teeth out.
It's not what that's for.
You're distracting me. He's over here like,
Sorry.
God damn it, V. All right. Anyway, I love Christopher Lloyd in this movie, and I think he is the glue that holds everything together. You got Michael J. Fox, great casting, great character with Marty McFly, but whatever sells this movie to me as being such a fun and like heartwarming adventure, I feel like it's Doc Brown. He's such a cool, interesting, and unique character that I don't think I've ever seen in any other movie before. He's such a standout. I love it.
Do you know who was originally supposed to play that part?
Do I want to know? Am I gonna?
Nicolas Cage.
John Cusack.
John Lithgow.
I don't know who that is.
Oh, yes, you do.
Yes, you do.
I do?
Yeah.
Can you? What else does he play?
He was in Dexter. Did you watch that? He
Dexter.
was the Trinity Killer.
Monty Python. He was a Monty Python guy.
Third Rock from the Sun.
Third Rock from the Sun.
That dude?
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm so glad he's.
He
not
was a
in this
Monty
movie.
Python, right?
No, he wasn't Monty Python.
He wasn't Monty Python.
No,
Who
He's
am I
not
thinking
British.
of?
No.
Who am I thinking of?
You're thinking of one of the Monty Python guys.
Nerd cred.
Give me your
Oh,
card
he
back.
was in Perry Mason. He was the guy that killed himself in Perry Mason.
Yeah, he's also the villain in Cliffhanger,
That's true. Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone movie.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm glad he's not Doc Brown. I don't think he would have. I feel like
Had he been Doc Brown, we never would have known the difference.
maybe, but I don't know if the movie would
I
have
don't
been as
know.
beloved.
Christopher Lloyd brought a lot to that character.
Yeah.
Eric Stoltz and John Lithgow. That would have been a way different movie.
It would have been completely different. Wow, what a weird thought. What alternate Back to the Future universe that's going to create. All right, so let's talk about the movie a little bit more. Because I think everybody that listens to this podcast has probably seen this movie. So I don't feel like we need to go scene by scene.
If you haven't seen this movie and you listen to our podcast, why?
What are you doing?
Yeah. Why do you like us?
So let's talk about some of our favorite aspects or favorite scenes of this movie across the board and just kind of get a feel for this first movie because it's so iconic. For me, when Marty goes back to 1955 and he's walking through the town circle with the clock tower and everything, and he's got, Sandman playing in the background, not the Metallica song, the other one. And that to me is just like, I love the fish out of water aspect. I love how everybody's commenting, like, what are you in the Marine or in the
Would you jump ship?
Did you jump ship? Are you in the National Guard? What's it like commenting on his 80s attire and stuff like that? It's so funny. I love it. I love watching it. It makes me feel like I want to go back to the 1950s and hang out with somebody back there. It's just such a cool thing. And I think Marty's a credit to Michael J. Fox is that as Marty, he is able to react to what's around him in such a interesting and fun way that makes you feel like you're wait there with him.
I love watching him flub through things, like when he calls his dad dad. He's like, dad, daddy-o.
Yeah.
Dad, daddy-o.
That's good stuff, man. And the absolute shock on his face when he realizes that he's sitting next to George McFly. He's like, that's classic scene where the camera's panned and
Crispin Glover is so great in this.
He's that perfect amount of awkward. Because Crispin Glover is a very strange person.
He is.
What else has he been in?
Creepy Thin Man, Charlie's Angels.
Willow. What is it? Is it Willow with the rat movie? Is that? I think it was called Willow. It wasn't the.
He was in Friday the 13th.
It wasn't the Out of the Way Peck.
He was in
not
Friday
that
the 13th.
Willow.
The 6th? Friday the 13th 6?
I just remember his dancing from Friday the 13th. And he actually made Friday the 13th before he made this movie.
Oh, okay.
So
Interesting.
Vader, I know you're not really as nostalgic about this movie as we are, but what are some of the scenes that you think of when you think about this movie? What are your favorite parts?
When I think about this movie, I think about the scene in the mall parking lot where we get to first see the DeLorean.
Yeah.
You know, and the Libyans.
Yeah.
The Libyans. Oh my God. Yeah. And, you know, I think about that scene, you know, that's a pretty exciting scene when we first get to see the DeLorean do its thing. Mm-hmm. And the other one is always the scene where they're trying to hit the clock tower with the lightning.
Okay. Those are like the most iconic
the two iconic scenes, you know, it's like, and that's the way I'm going to be with all three of these movies, is just the iconic scenes.
The set pieces.
Yeah. I mean,
I got you.
You know, so
definitely for the third one.
But they're fun. Yeah, for sure. With the train. And
the train's amazing.
Yeah.
Jude, what about you? What are some of the most iconic and your favorite scenes from this first movie?
So when I originally saw this, I was young and impressionable, and I always thought that like hanging onto a car while you're skateboarding was really cool. But now watching it, like what I'm really looking for, and I'm thinking like that, it's coming up, is Doc Brown's like reactions to everything. Like when he's tugging on the wire and he's like trying to get the clock tower rigged up and he accidentally unplugs it from below and he's like, ooh!
Yeah.
That was great. I just nodded. Sorry. And like when Lorraine comes to wherever they are in the garage.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, it's just his facial expressions while she's talking.
Yeah.
His like eyebrows are going bananas and he's just like eyeballing Marty the whole time. Like, what are you going to do about this?
And the best reaction is when the model car kind of.
Oh yeah. And he does the other thing.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Yeah. I love Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah.
I mean, he makes these movies for me.
Yeah.
You know, he's such a great character actor with his expressions and the way his facial expressions and everything. You know, even I go back farther. I go back to Taxi when he played Reverend Jim, and he was awesome. Him and Latka made that show, and his performance make these movies. You know, and you know everything he's been in the nerd world. Just even when he's as a commander or Captain Krug in Star Trek 3.
He was a Klingon.
Yeah,
huh?
he was awesome as a Klingon.
That's right. Those eyes, dude. Those eyes sell it.
Yeah.
Do you know what
he's just a fun actor. He's iconic. To me,
he's so expressive.
Yeah.
Do you know what Doc's middle name is?
Emmett.
No, Emmett is his first name, right?
Yeah,
Emmett,
he's in the phone book as Emmett L. Brown.
Oh, is it L or J?
L.
Okay.
Probably something weird
It's
like
Lathrop.
Lathrop?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love it.
I was gonna say like Laquitius or something weird, you know. So.
Lucifer. He's actually the devil, and he's like taking this poor kid around.
Jesus,
That would have been deep.
where did you take that?
That would have been awesome.
I went down a rabbit hole on that.
I would have loved that.
1985 is purgatory.
Yes.
But you know, I think
And it's the 7 layers of hell,
Yeah.
every different timeline. He has incest with his mom.
Oh my God.
and Biff is the devil.
Biff is. Good stuff. Kadish, since I know that you mentioned this before, but your Earthman Jack series, I got a chance to read the first book. And I think one of the things that I said to you when I reacted to that book was, I'm like, I feel like I'm watching like another episode of Back to the Future, because Earthman Jack, the character, he feels like Marty McFly. Mm-hmm. And I love how you brought that into your own world and your own writing. So what are some of the most iconic scenes in this movie for you?
Well, I mean, pretty much every scene in this movie is iconic, but the interesting thing is just how everything kind of melds together. Like, for instance, Billy Zane in his first ever movie role. He doesn't have a single line in this movie, but he's there.
Yeah.
If you look at like how they introduce Hill Valley at the beginning of the movie, and the fact that Hill Valley is itself an oxymoron.
Yeah.
But like you see, like there's like porn stores in the background. There's like it's all bail bonds, and like it's just like this rundown, crummy
Triple X movie on the theater.
Yeah, like just this terrible, awful town that's just been run down and is kind of derelict in certain ways. The place where Marty lives, it's all like
a fine place to raise a family.
In the 50s it was, but I love that, like the Americana 1950s, everything's pristine, it's being built.
When you go back to the 1950s, like everything is very different. Like the exercise studio in 1985 is now the diner where everyone kind of congregates. And in the sequel, it's kind of funny because they take like the Cafe 80s idea of like a throwback 1950s diner, but it's also part, exercise studio. So like they combine the 1985 and the 1950s thing into something new for like the 2015 version. But I think that the most iconic thing for me in this movie was the skateboard chase. That whole scene where basically Biff is chasing around Marty and he invents the skateboard to get away from them, and
he invents the skateboard.
He kind of does.
He kind of does. Yeah,
it goes from a scooter to a skateboard. I love that scene for the aspect of like you get these 1950s kids who are like, it feels very old school and very like Americana, and then you have this like street savvy kid from the 80s who gets a leg up because he's a little bit more street smart than the kids from the 50s. And that's what gives Marty the edge. I kind of think that aspect of it really sells it for me.
He's the Captain Jack Sparrow of the 1950s.
Exactly.
Yeah. But also like the entire opening shot of the first movie tells you everything that you need to know going into this movie. Like they set up the fact that the plutonium has been robbed. They set up the fact that, there was like some Libyan stuff. If you look at the pictures in Doc Brown's garage, basically his mansion burned down, and Bob Gale in interviews has come out and said like, Doc Brown did that to collect the insurance money so he could fund his experiments. He sold off the land to like a Burger King, like little things like that kind of like set up everything that's to come in this movie. The fact that when Lorraine's father hits Marty with the car, it's like another one of these kids jumped down in front of my car.
Yeah, like how many times has he done this?
Exactly. Like you get the sense that there are a lot of guys who are like watching Lorraine undress.
You know what? I'm not going to lie. I feel really bad saying this.
Lorraine's into it.
No. This is the first time that literally watching this movie this week for the podcast was the first time I ever realized that was Lorraine.
Oh.
I always thought it was just some random neighbor chick. I never connected the dot that was Lorraine in the window. And I'm like, I feel ashamed. Like I should have known this. It seems to be a common thing that everybody already knows. And I'm like, that's news to me. I thought it was just some random chick. I had
You feel dirty now that
a little bit because I was like,
hey, how's it going? Now you know it's Marty's mom.
Yeah, now I know it's Marty's mom. Who's thirsty for everybody in this movie.
Dude.
You want to talk about that, Jude?
I don't know.
Let's talk about how thirsty Lorraine is.
She's parched.
I never went to parked with a boy
or called a boy
or anything like that. And then you see her when she's a teenager and she's just like, give me some of that purple underwear, baby.
Because you're making me very uncomfortable right now.
She took off his pants.
She took off his pants.
They're over there on my hope chest. I was like, whoa.
You know what's funny is this script got shopped around Hollywood, like pretty much everywhere.
John Mulaney did a bit about it.
Yeah, but Disney, when they pitched it to Disney was like, the incest stuff is a no-go for us.
Yeah.
and even though like they had like much like kind of like edgier stuff going on at the time, Disney was like, we would never.
There's a line.
Yeah.
And you just crossed it. There's a scene where Marty makes out with his mom in the car.
We don't make out. She forces herself on him.
That's so much better, V.
In order to get his parents back together.
Yeah. It was all part of the plan. I love. Okay, so let's talk about that scene because it was one of my favorite.
The plan was for Marty to try to rape his mom.
Yes, that was the plan.
I guess
George
that is
George is
true,
like,
huh?
He's holding his mom's bra.
yeah, you're gonna
touch her
on her what? Yes, George. Yes, but it's all part of the plan.
Hey, you!
Get your damn hands off of her.
Should I swear?
Yes, God damn it, George. We're just gonna sit and quote the movie
I'm all right
from here
with
on
that.
out.
Oh man, it's good stuff.
Oh, and did you notice who the mom is? Who Lorraine's mom is? in
No,
this?
talk to me.
The mom from Gremlins.
Oh my God, it is. That's
Yeah, yeah.
awesome. She's such a badass in that movie.
Yeah, and did you notice that the whole clock tower set is the town from Gremlins?
Yes, that I knew because when I watched Gremlins, people were telling me about that. This is basically the same studio set that they had. They just changed the buildings a little bit.
Well, so funny story. So basically, this is a Universal Studios movie. And Sid Sheinberg was the head of Universal Studios at the time that this movie was being made. And he was the kind of mentor for Steven Spielberg in the sense that he discovered Steven Spielberg back when Spielberg had made his short film Amblin. He gave Steven Spielberg his start. He was like Steven Spielberg's most staunch supporter in Hollywood. And it was through Sid Sheinberg that Universal Studios became like, it rose up from a B-level studio to a major Hollywood studio. And he was responsible for a lot of like the classic 80s movies that we all know and love, mostly through his association with Spielberg. And so when Back to the Future came out, Sheinberg, he was kind of like one of those old school studio heads where he's like, now look at here. So he's got like the stogie in his hand and stuff like that. And he had a lot of notes for this movie. And basically he came in, and originally Einstein, the dog, was a chimp. It was Doc Brown's kind of orangutan companion.
okay.
And Sid Sheinberg was like, now look at here. Say, no movies that have monkeys in them ever make any money. I want you to change this to a dog, make his name Einstein.
That's a great idea.
And so like Robert Zemeckis was like, oh, okay, he's the boss.
Yeah.
People love dogs.
And then like, he'd be sitting there and he'd be like, what's the name of this guy's mom? Madge. Like whatever. He's like, I want you to change your name to Lorraine. And they're like, why do you want to change your name?
Because it's
sexy. No, he's like, that's the name of my wife. We got in a fight the other night. I want to, make it up to her. Otherwise, I'm never gonna have sex again.
Okay.
So they're like, okay, we're gonna change the name of Lorraine. And so like, he'd have all these like weird kind of off the wall suggestions, and he didn't really understand the movie. And at a certain point, he was like, I don't get the title of this film. And they're like, you don't get Back to the Future? And he's like, no, I want you to change the name to Spaceman from Pluto.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing about that.
And basically they were like, but there is no spaceman from Pluto in this movie. He's like, trust me, it'll sell. And so like once this came down, like, Zemeckis and Bob Gale were just like, wow, what are we gonna do? Like,
We can't name this movie.
Can't name this movie. This is the worst title ever. And so Spielberg's like I know Sid, I'll handle this. And so Spielberg wrote this memo that said like, Sid, your suggestion for the change of the title was the best joke I've heard all day. It made everyone in the office laugh. Keep it up. Love, Steven. And he distributed it to everyone like at the studio.
Yeah.
And when Sid saw that, everyone was like, "Oh, Sid, that was a good joke that you played on them." And Sid was just like,
He had to own it.
"Yeah." He was like, "Oh, yeah. It was a joke.
I'm a really funny guy.
I'm a really funny guy."
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. Steven Spielberg playing chess with the studio execs. It's good stuff.
Yeah. So basically, Spielberg just like outmaneuvered Sid Sheinberg to basically save the title of this movie.
Right on.
Right on.
All right, let's polish off part one. I just real quick wanted to talk about the final scene where Marty's in 1955 and he's, they're trying to time the clock tower lightning strike perfectly. That scene to me is like the perfect how to build tension in a film
Yeah.
ever. It's like I never not feel tense when I'm watching Marty sit there and try and turn over the
No
DeLorean.
matter how many times you've seen this before.
You're like, oh my God, is he going to make it? Oh shit.
I absolutely agree.
It's so good. It's so
my God,
well
the
done.
car won't start.
Yeah, the alarm goes off and you're like, and it's funny when you think about it because the alarm goes off and before that, Doc is like, when this alarm goes off, you have exactly this long to get to 88 miles an hour. And obviously Doc's calculations were wrong because Marty didn't leave and he still made it in time. So if he would have actually been able to go when the alarm clock went off, none of it would have worked.
Well, what we know is what time it was when the lightning hit, but we don't know the second.
Yeah.
You only know the minute.
Yep.
So I think that they were calculating it up to the second that it turned that minute.
Yeah.
But really, there's
a whole
55 seconds in between there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a fun, that scene is so much fun and it's so intense. And every time I watch it, I'm on the edge of my seat. Like, is he going to make it? When he sits there and he bangs his head against the steering wheel and he honks the horn and that's what makes the car start. And he gets up and the look on his face, he's just like, oh, all right, let's go. I love that scene. That's one of my favorite things, especially for a great climax to the movie. I think it's so much fun, so amazing. I'm gushing over this movie now. So,
can we talk about the pronunciation of gigawatts?
Is it gigawatts or gigawatts?
So the correct pronunciation is gigawatts.
Okay,
but the physicist that they had consulting on the movie pronounced it the old-fashioned way, which was gigawatt.
Okay.
And so because of that, when they were directing Christopher Lloyd in this thing, Robert Zemeckis was like, oh, it's pronounced gigawatt. But the entire scientific community is like, no. So it's just kind of like a funny thing.
Yeah, there's so much about this movie where, like, the whole time travel aspect, there's a lot of debate whether or not it actually works. Or
I know
whether...
Kadish probably has a lot to say about
that's
the time
That's going to have to be like an exclusive, like, Patreon episode, just a super deep dive on whether or not.
He's going to you bitch you with his eyeballs if you don't let him talk.
Do you want to do it for final thoughts? Can we do final thoughts for part one and you can talk about the time travel thing?
Well, I'll just give like a general overview of the time travel right here. Because basically there's like 3 different theories for time travel. And the one that this movie kind of adheres to is the alternate timeline or multiverse time travel, which is basically like once you change something in the past, a new offshoot is created. And basically they travel, kind of forward in time onto that offshoot instead of going back to the original timeline.
Right.
And in fact, in the sequel, they actually do a brilliant job of explaining how that works to the audience. So it's very clear and not confusing at all. And in fact, there are certain like little quibbles where you could talk about like, why is he erased last when he was born last, and stuff like that. But the whole concept of, the alternate timelines that happen because of ripples in the past works perfectly well. And, this was a very well thought out use of time travel.
So I know we've talked about this before, but your whole thing is like, once you establish the rules for time travel in your movie, you have to adhere to those rules from that point forward. And then it's okay. Even if it doesn't make sense scientifically or by theory or whatever, as long as you follow your rules at the start, you're in the clear.
Well, it's important that the rules make sense. So like if you tell the audience, okay, this is how this works and this is why it works this way, then the audience is willing to suspend their disbelief and be like, okay. So like, even though there are certain things, like for instance, when we get into the third movie, why couldn't they just swap out the gas tank on the other DeLorean with, the one that Marty brought back, or use that DeLorean to go back or something like that. So there's like little things that you can kind of nitpick about, but there are ways that you can like ignore that because of the rules that they established. And that's the important thing, is that the audience isn't sitting there picking apart all this stuff. They're just able to kind of accept what they've been giving and kind of go forward with it. Whereas if you contrast it with something like, for instance, Avengers Endgame, which Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale actually got a real kick out of, because that movie specifically references Back to the Future, and they say Back to the Future rules when they're talking about establishing the time travel. But their establishment of the time travel doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And so that entire movie, you're sitting there like, how does this work? What are you supposed to be doing? Whereas with Back to the Future, it's, oh, okay, it works this way, and we're going to go with that.
Right on. Jude, let's do some final thoughts on part one.
I'm sorry, I had an ear itch.
That's okay.
Okay, I'm back.
Jude, why don't you tell us what are your thoughts on, or final thoughts on part one?
Gosh, I don't know how to sum it up. This is my favorite of the 3.
Okay.
It's a staple of my youth. And I don't know. I love it. I think it really makes sense. I love that they establish what the rules are. And I'm a person who's like, if you don't make it clear that I can trust you, I'll never trust you, and I won't be able to fully invest in your story, and I won't enjoy it.
Yeah.
This allows me to do all of that.
Yep.
Like, here are the rules. We don't mess with the rules. You're in a safe place. Please enjoy our story. And I can.
Yeah. Nice. I have to say, for my final thoughts, I just want to say, like, this is the best movie out of the 3 as far as a narrative goes, because I feel like you can watch just this one and you can have a completely satisfied experience. There is you don't have to go before, you don't have to go after. There's no questions left. If you cut the movie off when Marty gets back to the alternate 1985 that he creates after, saving his parents.
Well, Michael J. Fox didn't even know that there would be a sequel until Like
no
he
one
saw
knew.
it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I love about this first movie is that you can just sit down and watch the first one and you can have no knowledge of the other two.
Yeah.
And it still works.
It's a complete story.
They didn't actually intend on making a sequel, I don't believe.
I don't think they did. No, until much later.
They goofed us with the whole "gotta come back and save your kids, Marty" thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was.
Well, that whole thing was meant to be kind of like a one-off stinger.
Right.
So like it was like, oh, the adventure continues, but they never expected to do a sequel.
Yeah.
So, and we can probably talk about their change of plans. once we
$380
talk
million
about the
later. We're making a sequel.
We're definitely making a sequel. All right. V, what are your final thoughts on the part one of Back to the
I
Future?
don't know if I can add a whole lot more to what you guys have already said. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
It's iconic and it's pure. It's what the 80s were all about as far as fun, cool movies. It was just a good time.
Yeah.
Of the three, it's by far my favorite, and it's just an iconic classic movie.
Right on.
It's good. I can't fault it for anything really.
Yeah, I can't really have any. I don't have any salt for this movie.
No,
at
I
all.
don't either. It's like you said. It's like you can watch this movie and not the other two, and be perfectly okay.
Yeah, I have a little bit of salt for part two, and we're going to get there in a minute.
All right.
Kadish, what are your final thoughts on part one of Back to the Future?
They're pretty much the same as my opening thoughts. This is a brilliant movie. It's a classic. It's almost a perfect movie, in my opinion. 5 stars out of 5. I love this movie. I can watch it at any time and be just as entertained as the first time I've seen it. I must have seen this film like 1,000 different times. I've studied it. I've dissected it. It's been a big influence on me and my work. So, I don't want to, kind of belabor that point anymore. But I do want to point out that the characters in this movie are, I think, what makes it so lasting. We've talked about Doc and Marty, but one character that I want to talk about a little bit is Biff.
Oh, Biff. Yeah, he's a perfect villain.
So like Thomas F. Wilson, he wasn't originally cast as Biff. Basically, they had a different actor, but when they cast Eric Stoltz, they wanted someone who was like bigger and more intimidating because Eric Stoltz was very tall. So they cast Thomas F. Wilson, who came in and basically, kind of
Fills up a screen.
Yeah, he crafted the character of Biff. And when they recast Marty McFly, he was like, Biff was like so much bigger than Michael J. Fox, Thomas F. Wilson was, that they were like, oh, we could have kept our original guy because Michael J. Fox is so small. And in fact, if you look at every scene that Michael J. Fox is in with
Doc?
Yeah, with Christopher Lloyd. Christopher Lloyd's always hunching over. And that's because like he's trying to make himself the same height as Michael J. Fox because Michael J. Fox was really small.
Yeah, he's a short guy.
Yeah, so like it's just kind of funny. But Thomas F. Wilson really kind of crafted the character of Biff and made him such a great villain in these movies. And he's actually like nothing like Biff. Like
he's super nice.
Yeah, he's like a super nice guy. And in fact, he didn't get along with Eric Stoltz like at all. Like in fact. I think in the cafeteria scene where they were like kind of filming where they were about to fight. Yeah. Stoltz, he was like a big method actor and he kept like getting really rough with Wilson. And basically Thomas Wilson was just like, dude, like lighten the F up, and he was planning his revenge on Eric Stoltz when he got fired. And Thomas F. Wilson was like, oh, good. glad I don't have to work with that jerk anymore. Man. In fact, Eric Stoltz, he was so method that he insisted everyone call him Marty. And so everyone on set thought that his name really was Marty because he was just like so method, and all the actors hated working with him.
Oh, that's a bummer.
I can't really think of a lot of iconic stuff that Eric Stoltz has done, right?
He's got a recognizable face, but
I mean, you know the name.
Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, I guess.
Is he the drug dude?
Yeah.
The drug dealer?
Yeah. But,
holy shit.
And Mask. Mask was a big thing.
Some Kind of Wonderful with Leah Thompson.
Oh, okay. Cool.
He's definitely not
he's not Marty McFly.
He's not a top tier dude.
No.
He's like, oh yeah, I know that name.
Yeah.
But I think that he would have been had he been in this role.
Do you think the movie still would have been as successful?
Yeah.
No way.
I don't think so. I don't think
you're outnumbered, Jude.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I guess that means I'm wrong.
You can see the outtakes. Like there is footage out there of him.
Yeah, they shot 5 weeks of it.
I don't think people understand how big of a person Michael J. Fox was with
Family Ties.
Family Ties.
Yeah.
That was the hook.
I'm named after him in Family Ties.
Yeah. So
right.
I mean, that was a big show, and
yeah.
So yeah,
right on. All right, guys, that's our discussion for part 1 of Back to the Future. Before we move on to the part 2 of our episode, a real quick word from our sponsors. Welcome back, everybody. All right, let's talk about Back to the Future Part 2, my least favorite of the trilogy.
Same.
How dare I say
This
that?
is my favorite one.
See, I'm with Alex. I like the first 20 minutes.
No, okay,
I like it when they went to the future, but the rest of the movie is whatever.
Really? That's my least favorite part.
Really?
Yeah. We'll talk about it in a second. Jude, do you want to do the synopsis real quick and get part 2 out of the way?
I do.
Set the stage? Go ahead.
I will set the stage.
All right.
Once upon a time in a far-off future.
A little faster.
All right, 1989, Back to the Future 2, rated PG with a runtime of 1 hour, 48 minutes. Had a budget of $40 million, which it doubled the original budget. What do you think it brought in?
It doubled the original budget. I'm going to say it brought in $400 million.
Vader?
I'm going to say it was right around the same as I said for the first one, around 300.
331.9.
Oh, wow.
Boom.
Yes.
Suck it, bitch.
A little bit less than the original.
Yeah, sequelitis a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So, something has got to be done about Marty and Jennifer's kids in 2015. Okay.
You guys remember when that was the future?
Yeah, I do.
Wait. That was 5 years ago.
Yeah, 6 almost.
What the hell? I was so angry when that happened. When it was hey, it's Back to the Future Day. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
But everything's shitty.
I know.
There's no flying cars. There's no de-aging. The's no dehydrated pizzas.
There's no Jaws 19. I was really annoyed.
It was a bad day.
I was legit annoyed.
So I want to start off by saying that I think Doc is the real villain in this whole movie. He messes up. He F's up by letting Jennifer and Biff see the time machine. So first off, they've got to stash the sleeping Jennifer in an alley to save the kids in the year 2015. And instead of telling the cops, hey, that's my Jennifer, when the cops find her in the alley, they wait and they let the cops take her home, risking her meeting her future self. Then they also discuss the time machine at full volume in broad daylight with Biff within earshot, which I know they didn't know that Biff was in earshot, but they're in the middle of the street, the time machine and time-space continuum and blah, blah, blah. And then while they're trying to find Jennifer, Biff steals the time machine and goes back to the past, becomes rich, kills George McFly, and marries Lorraine. So then when Marty gets back to what he thinks is his 1985, it's a different timeline, and no one realizes that Hill Valley is a dump until Marty accidentally breaks into his house, and there's a whole different family living there. He's got to go back to 1955, where it all started, to undo the damage that Biff did. And also, Marty has a trigger of being called chicken all of a sudden in this one. And that causes him to make every bad decision possible and drives most of the plot. Just people calling him chicken.
The chicken thing wasn't in the first movie.
No.
Was it?
Not at all. No, I
never thought about that before.
They invented that specifically so that Marty could
Push the narrative.
Could have a character arc for the next 2 movies.
Wow,
that's his whole character
lame.
arc is just
that's weird.
he doesn't
Overcoming his trigger. You could get Marty to do anything you want.
just by calling him chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little bit convenient.
Very.
A little bit convenient.
A little bit.
Just a little bit. A little bit.
Fine.
Interesting.
All right, so I'm gonna
Please discuss.
I'm gonna get my salt out of the way.
Do it. Get him.
The first. How long is he in 2015? A half hour, 40 minutes?
25, 30 minutes.
Yeah, the first act. The first act of this movie is my least favorite out of the whole trilogy.
Really?
I don't like 2015.
I have a problem with the first hour and 48 minutes of this movie.
Holy shit. I didn't know.
Just to be specific.
This I feel like they overdid it. They sequelitis it. They took every aspect that we enjoyed about the first movie, Biff. 2015 Biff's going to be like a half cyborg, and he's going to act super quirky and weird. I hated it. I hated Biff.
Well, they did that with all the kids. They put
it's
some
so
weird
dumb.
implants
It's
on
so
them and stuff. I actually kind of liked it back at the time.
No, I didn't like it.
They did what really irritates me about movies that are made in the 80s about the future is every single one of them does what they did here, and it irritates me. Everybody's wearing weird ass shit that doesn't look good and doesn't make sense.
Johnny Mnemonic on us.
Yeah. Everything looks terrible. It's like it's very obviously created in the 80s to look like it's in the future, and I hate it.
Well, but that's
That's what people thought the 80s or the 2000s.
Everybody legit
The 2000s?
2000s.
Sweetheart.
Listen, I
A little bit
legitimately,
more champagne on me.
I legitimately thought that we would have flying cars by now. I really did.
We kind of do. But they're just more like helicopters.
yeah.
Came out with those weak ass hoverboards.
Yeah, it's
You remember those?
Yeah,
they have to
where's-
be
yeah.
on a magnetic track. Yeah, it's lame.
Yeah.
I mean, at some
And
point,
to be fair, everything is bullshit, but in a different way. It looks better.
Yeah, I like this whole opening first act with 2015, the hijinks that ensue. I think every single character, even Marty McFly himself, the older Marty McFly, terrible. I don't understand why they put.
His daughter, though, was hot.
It's Michael J. Fox in drag.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
No, I was being
awful.
sarcastic.
Okay, good.
yeah, there's that
I'm
one
glad.
scene where it's like it's like daughter, son, and old Marty,
And they're all just Marty.
and they're all at the same table. That they got an Oscar for that.
Did they?
Yeah,
Come on.
yeah. No, they
terrible.
did
For special effects.
for special.
Well, special effects is fine because it
Oh,
was
what?
new.
They put gray hair and bags
Yeah.
under
No.
Jennifer's eyes.
No, because what they actually, I think they invented a new style of filmmaking to be able to have the same actor on screen together
Yeah, they did
interact.
something,
Before, there was always a split where you would not be able to have the actor interact with himself. And this is like they were breaking new ground where they could actually have Michael J. Fox react with Michael J. Fox.
Well, they created a new kind of camera rig that would like a computer would control it.
Yeah.
So you could get the exact same like camera movement from shot to shot. So it allowed them to have the actor be like in one place in the frame. And then they would basically reshoot the exact same scene with the actor as a different character in a different place.
Yeah.
And then they would be able to composite them together seamlessly for the first time. Like that was like the big thing that Robert Zemeckis really wanted to do, was to push the envelope in terms of what they could do in terms of, having the same actor on screen. And the same.
Is that why he cast Michael J. Fox in like 19 roles?
No, I think so. There was like
They were already paying him.
there was this thing going on where, first of all, Marty's son had to look like Marty in order for Marty to kind of take over. So that was just kind of like a script thing.
Yeah.
But for the most part, there was an issue with Crispin Glover, where basically
I was just gonna say.
Crispin Glover did not return for the next two movies.
Didn't that set a precedent, though? Like, didn't he sue the studio? And that set a precedent for future lawsuits?
So what happened was that basically they had some type of salary dispute where Crispin Glover, in the first movie, he had been paid less than Leah Thompson and Thomas F. Wilson. And so for the sequels, he came back and he's like, I want $1 million. And they were like, no, you're not worth $1 million. And so they basically kind of came to an impasse where Crispin Glover's people like refused to budge. And so they were like, okay, well, we're just going to write him out of the movie. And so like originally like the Seamus McFly character in the third movie that was supposed to be played by Crispin Glover.
It would have been better.
I agree, but they had to deal with what they
I
had.
would love to see Crispin Glover pull off an Irish accent.
But
in a Western.
But they got a stand-in to do George McFly in the sequel.
The upside down George McFly.
Yeah.
And, he used prosthetics, and then they had long shots of him. And Crispin Glover sued the studio for using his likeness without his permission. Ooh. And that's what Jude was talking about in terms of like the, setting the stage so that, there are likeness rights now. Mm-hmm. And that's because of what Crispin Glover in this movie did, where they used his likeness without his permission. So, the studio had to kind of pay up for that. I believe they settled out of court for like $750,000. So
he got pretty much paid close to what he wanted to begin with. Yeah. They should have just kept him in the movie. But it was a really weird situation. I know that they had to mess with the screenplay and stuff like that to avoid this. But I don't know. Yeah, just this first act of this movie is just not for me, man. I just don't like it. I love the second half when he goes back to 1955 and you get to see like an alternate version of what was happening. You get
like
to see
a different perspective.
Yeah, perspective. Yes, thank you. You get to see a different perspective of the first movie. I love that. Mm-hmm. I absolutely love the second half of this movie, but the first half really drags for me, and I think it's way over the top, and they go full sequelitis with this.
I think you're a fool.
Well, why don't you tell? What's your favorite parts of this movie? What's your thoughts on this 2015?
So the cool thing that they did with these two sequels was, first of all, they shot them back to back, but secondly, they made them part of a larger story. So a typical sequel will just be like a new adventure, you know, like has very little ties to the original.
Oh, you mean 2 and 3 they shot back to back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically with this one, they said like, okay, the first movie was actually just the first part of the story, the first act of a 3-act story. And so you could watch all 3 of these movies back to back and it tells a single interconnected tale, which I think is super, super cool. So like this is probably one of the best sequels ever made. It's up there with like The Godfather Part 2, which kind of inspired, you know, them for doing this in the sense that like it was a continuation of the story. So the future part that you guys are kind of poo-pooing on, I actually really enjoy because it shows the most imagination.
I'm not poo-pooing anything. I like the future stuff.
Yeah, I do
Vader,
too.
you better get on board.
And
I'm not doing it.
We need more power.
You better poopy pants Kadish right now if you want to stay on this side of the table.
We're crisscrossing today.
Oh man.
But you know, like the great part about this opening scene is not only do you get, you know, to see like flying cars and like this vision of the future and stuff like that, you also get to see the kind of like history repeat itself with like probably the best set piece in the first movie, which was the skateboard chase. But now it's taken up to like another level. And I don't know, like there's just so much about this part of the movie. I remember going to see this with my parents. Like the whole family and my cousin went to go see this movie in the theater because we were such big fans of the first movie. And I can remember watching this on the big screen and just being like blown away by what I was seeing. It was like so much fun and it was so imaginative. And there are little things in it that I just love. Like for instance, when Doc Brown starts peeling his makeup off.
Yeah.
I didn't think you would recognize me, Marty. I've had some work done.
And he's like, I got a new spleen and new colon.
Yeah. Well, they say they extended his life by like 30 years or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was all just because like they didn't want to have to keep putting old age makeup on Christopher Lloyd. But the thing is like when he took his makeup off, I didn't notice any difference.
Yeah, but no, that's part of the gag.
It took some of the neck
The wrinkles.
neck wrinkles off.
Yeah.
Yeah, the crepey old person.
No, I mean, again, like Christopher Lloyd, he sells Doc Brown so well.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have any problems with him as a character or even with Marty.
He's got so much energy. Like,
It's
look at him running around.
Dude, it's amazing.
We're watching it right now with the volume off, which is what we always do when we're talking about stuff, just to kind of refresh it in our memories. So we're rewatching it right now. And Christopher Lloyd is just running around the screen right now.
Yeah.
Did you guys, I know I'm older than you guys by about a good decade, but have you ever did you ever go watch Taxi? Have you ever watched the old sitcom?
The sitcom.
The sitcom?
No.
I did. Yeah.
You really need to go back and watch some of the highlights of that show.
Okay.
Because it's classic
Christopher
Lloyd.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you will lose your mind. He is so good.
All right. Right on.
He plays a guy named Reverend Jim. He's just a drugged out stoner, blasted, just his mind's completely gone taxi driver named Reverend Jim. And it's just, he's incredible.
I'll have to check it out.
It's just a good show.
Yeah.
There's so many classic characters on that show, but he is a standout. And you really should go just kind of check out, a few episodes of him. They're good stuff. It's good stuff.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd also like to point out the cinematographer of all 3 of these films was Dean Cundey, who did, all of John Carpenter's, big movies like Escape from New York and also Jurassic Park and stuff like that. So it has a very kind of consistent look and feel to it. It's very high quality cinematography. I love the Jaws 19 gag, where like the
shark still looks fake.
The 3D shark comes out and eats Marty McFly.
I was always kind of fascinated with the hologram technology they used because they actually kind of got that right. Because you can go to a concert now and see a hologram perform. Mm-hmm. It's weird, but it's there.
Yeah.
But I also love like the Cafe 80s where you go in there and you got these TV screens with like Michael Jackson selling you food and you got Ronald Reagan kind of battling with the Ayatollah Khomeini over like what you should order.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but that the 2 kids who were playing that video game.
Oh, it's Elijah Wood.
Elijah Wood is one of those kids. It was his first ever movie part.
Wow.
Frickin' Frodo Baggins is in Back to the Future too. Yeah. I always thought that was funny. He's wearing like a soup strainer or something like that on his head. It's
You
so
have to
goofy.
actually use your hands. This game sucks.
Yeah. Which is another thing that we're starting to see and with the like Oculus Rift and the VR experience and stuff like that. So I mean, there's a couple of things.
It's kind of fun to see if they got stuff right.
You know what? You know what's the one thing that they got completely wrong? Fax machines.
Yeah.
They lean so hard on like a new fax is coming in, and it says like you're fired on it. Like nobody uses fax machines.
This was pre-smartphones.
Yeah. It's funny though. All right, so
but you know, the whole future aspect of this, like the alternate 2015, it's such an imaginative time, and I really like, to me, this was what made this movie like so special, was like getting to see like this version of the future and how the characters interact with the future. And one of the great things that makes the Back to the Future trilogy like such a grounded classic is that it's really a family saga. You know, like you talk about Star Wars, you know, the Skywalker saga. It's a family saga. It's about a father and a son.
The McFly saga.
The McFly saga.
Exactly. Like this.
That's a T-shirt.
This is really about like, you know, the whole impetus for the first movie was Bob Gale, the writer, saying like, I wonder what would have happened if I'd met my dad when he was my age, and like, would we have been friends? Like what would have happened? And throughout the course of these movies, it's this family saga where you get to see like Marty interact with his parents in a way that, you know, he was never able to know them like as a regular teenager.
You get to see Biff interact with his younger self.
Yeah. You do.
Hey, dumbass.
You know what? Out of all the actors, I think, and we'll talk about this for part 3 too, but like Biff's character and the actor who plays Biff, he has such a great range. He can play so many different versions of that character, and he sells each and every one of them as a different character.
100%.
Did you ever see him in the Wing Commander game opposite Mark Hamill?
Yeah.
No, what is this? What?
Yeah, he.
A little before your time.
Everything's before my time, Vader.
You little young whippersnapper. Back in my day,
Mark Hamill played across Biff.
he was something other than Luke Skywalker.
So Thomas F. Wilson and Mark Hamill were in the Wing Commander 3 and Wing Commander 4 video game. And this was back when they were like using CD-ROMs to put like actual like full motion video into video games.
Yeah.
And Thomas F. Wilson played the character Maniac, and he played against Mark Hamill, and he's amazing. So
that's awesome.
He's a great actor.
I was watching some old video clips from some games just a couple days ago, and man, from like, I think it was like from Red Alert or Wing Command.
Oh, yeah.
Command and Conquer. And it was just, they're not good.
The old LucasArts.
It's just like, oh my gosh, the technology has just come so far. And I used to play those games like, oh man, this is awesome. This is really cool, you know, and it's just, it's amazing.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a nostalgic feel for those old video games that use like live action cutscenes and stuff like that. I think was it Dark Forces or whatever. There was like a live action Call of Cthulhu and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like I like that kind of thing. But anyway, that's besides the point. I don't know what else to say about it. I just really didn't like this first act. But the second act, if we want to move on to that part of this movie.
Yeah, if you want to go past like 1 hour, 48 minutes.
Yeah, let's go.
Do you really hate this whole movie?
I don't like it.
What?
I don't like it.
Why not?
We can go to the third movie whenever you want.
I think everything looks terrible. And I hate movies set in the future, even though it's in the past now. I hate movies set in the future that look terrible like this. It really just
Well, what about the part where they
effing
go
irks me.
to the 1955 and we get to see the first movie again?
It's fine, but I'm already like checked out by that
Really?
point.
Yeah.
Wow. No,
Yeah.
I really love the alternate 1985 where, you know, Biff Tannen basically rules.
we could talk about that.
I hate that too. I hate Lorraine's boob job that doesn't look like a boob job at all. She still looks like an A cup.
Yeah, they're weird.
She's just wearing a low cut shirt.
You're going to criticize her.
I'm criticizing her boobs. I'm going on record. Her boobs aren't big enough to be, Mom, you're so big. She's just wearing a low cut shirt. She's not even wearing a fucking push up. There's my one F bomb. Sorry.
Wow.
I'm not sorry.
Wow. That's amazing. You really don't like her,
The only thing
her
I
plastic
like-
surgery?
The only thing I like in this movie, in the second movie, is old Biff, old crotchety Biff.
Oh, okay.
That's it. He's my only entertainment throughout the whole thing.
You know what's funny about old crotchety Biff is that, you know, when he comes back from having stolen the time machine, and he gets out of the car and he like breaks his cane.
Yeah.
I always thought like he was in pain because he hit himself with the cane when he was getting out of the car.
Oh no.
But actually he's being erased from existence because he changed the past, and that's what's causing him to like, react like that.
Yeah, I think there's
and they kind of implied it, but they never flat out showed like that's what happened. So like you're just kind of like, for the longest time I thought, oh, he just hit himself with the cane. It was weird.
Somebody will have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's a deleted scene that better explains that whole reaction that he's having. And he is actually being erased from time, just like Marty was in the first movie. When Biff went back to 1955 and changed the timeline, he began to disappear. And the whole 2015 timeline that they were in is going to start just being gone because Biff is then in power after that point. So it's kind of cool. I like that they're following their same rules that they set up in the previous movie. But
but technically, like the minute that history was changed, he wouldn't have been able to go back to that timeline. Biff. So there's slight, like I said, like there's slight hiccups in the time travel logic.
Yeah, I guess there is, huh?
But what are you gonna do?
This time machine flew itself back.
That's another thing too. I was watching it with some friends of ours on Discord, and we were like, "How does Biff know how to use the time machine? Like he has to be able to know that he has to type in." Is it?
You have to put the time circuits on.
This is
Marty
where you are. This is where you're
forgot.
going. This is where you were.
Yeah,
it's whatever.
All right.
And how come when they got back in the time machine to go back to 85, which was the alternate timeline, they found out belatedly? How come it didn't say, this is where you've been?
What do you mean?
Like, it says, this is where you're going. This is where you're at. This is where you've been. It should have already been on there. This is where you've just come from.
Yeah, well, I think that they weren't paying attention to it, but also the time circuits were on a fritz. So like they kept shorting out. So like they couldn't.
Yeah,
they
that
really
was
weren't
a setup for what happens at the end of this movie, where like the time circuits had like a short, and Doc actually says out loud, he's like, "Well, I'm gonna have to check that out later. I'm gonna have to fix that or something."
Yeah, there was a deleted scene in this movie where basically Old Man Peabody gets out of the mental institution.
Old Man Peabody.
Because he was put there because he was telling people that space aliens invaded his farm. And when he gets out, he sees the DeLorean flying by, and he takes out his shotgun and shoots it in revenge for his pine tree getting killed.
Yeah.
And the shotgun blast is what messes up the time circuits.
Oh, I want to see that.
I would have enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's a cool little
Old
scene.
Man Peabody had these crazy ideas about breeding pines.
I love it. All right, let's talk about the hijinks that ensue in the 1955 version of the first movie, where Marty gets to see himself interact at the high school dance. This is
the
my
Enchantment Under the Sea dance.
Thank you. I forgot the name of it. This is my all-time favorite part of this movie. I love the idea of going back and seeing the first movie from a different perspective and seeing how Marty interacts with those events without messing them up.
I love seeing it through your eyes.
And I love the fact that
I'm with her.
You can go back and watch the first movie and now be able to see, okay, so Marty was there and he saw it and he was in that window in that building. That, to me, that saves this movie. Because otherwise, if it was just 2015 and they kept on going with like the alternate, Donald Trump Biff version, like all that stuff, I don't really like all that stuff. I don't enjoy it. It's not fun for me to watch.
I never thought it'd be you, kid.
But I understand, but I understand why they did it and what the progression of the story is going to be. But I once they get back to the 1955 and we get to see it from that different perspective, I freaking fall in love with this movie. And that's what saves it for me. That's what makes it like a good sequel for me. So what are you guys' thoughts on Marty going back and seeing everything? Vader? Really? So you don't like this movie at all, do you?
No, it's very much my least favorite of the three for sure.
Wonder Twin powers activate. Jude, same thing for you?
Wait, should we do it this way because we're flip-flopping?
No.
No, I feel the same way. I don't like this one. I get what you're saying about it being like a full story from 1 to 3 and they were shot back to back and fine, whatever. But it...
Wow.
No.
That is some well thought out criticism, Jude.
I was reading from my script that I wrote for myself.
So originally, this was just going to be like a single sequel. Mm-hmm. And the original script had 4 acts, with the Old West being the 4th act. And both Zemeckis and Bob Gale sat there and they were like, you know what, like this 4th act doesn't really belong, and it feels like it should be its own thing. And so they came up with the idea of breaking it off into its own movie. And originally they were budgeted for like $50 million to do like the sequel, which was a lot of money at the time. And so they went to Universal and they were like, hey, how about you let us do 2 movies? And Universal was like, F off. You know? It's like, that's going to cost $100 million. And they're like, we think we could do it for 80.
They just made almost $400 million. They should have been like, yeah, let's go.
Yes, but they were like, look, let us do 2 movies. Let us shoot it back to back. We can do it for $70 to $80 million. So you get 2 movies for the, you know, for
the price of one good one.
Yeah. And
that's terrible.
And basically, the number crunchers came in at the studio and they were like, hey, you know, it's actually much more cost effective to shoot 2 movies and you can get them cheaper than you normally would if you waited, you know, time in between.
Was this the first movie that they did that back to back kind of thing with?
No, there was one that was the 3 Musketeers and the 4 Musketeers. It was like an older movie, but that's where they got the idea to do this back to back, and it worked out so well that, you know, eventually they did it for Lord of the Rings. Yeah. However, it almost killed Robert Zemeckis because, like, while he was shooting the 3rd movie, he'd have to fly back and like edit.
I can imagine how much work
and stuff like that.
Gosh, that's crazy.
So it was a very stressful shoot for the director and the producers and stuff like that. And that's one of the reasons why you don't see this happen too much, except for super high budget movies that it just makes more economic sense to do everything all at once.
Yeah. And it helps, you know, honestly, it helps sell the age of the characters. If the events are supposed to take place over a short period of time, but you have like 6 years and the actors age, and you start having to deal with makeup effects and haircuts and all this other stuff. But like doing it all at once kind of
That's probably why you don't like kid actors.
Why?
Because they change as they get older.
But what you know what makes this movie really interesting is the fact that like each act in this movie is very kind of delineated, where the first act happens in 2015, second act happens in 1985, third act happens in 1950. And you know, like it just, everything plays out so well, and it does what a good sequel should do, is it kind of takes the story in a different direction without being like too radically different. It doesn't try to make things bigger and more impressive than it needs to. And it sets up, you know, what's to come, and it doesn't, you know, mess up anything that came before it.
That's very important. That's what I think. That's another thing that I love, how they tiptoed around the first movie without messing anything up. That I really appreciate that part.
Well, the whole third act of this movie, where basically you have the characters from the future seeing their past selves and you know, going around and doing stuff, you know, that, you know, has an effect on what they had done in the past. Like, it would have been very easy to screw that up.
Oh, very easily, yeah. So I really appreciate that they took their time and made sure that they wrote around everything and say, okay, if this happens, then we make sure that doesn't mess up the first movie. Aces, good job.
Yeah, but that was also probably one of the most fun parts of this movie.
Yeah,
was getting to see, you know, the events of the first movie seen from, you know, the same character's perspective and like a different like angle or different time or like whatever. Like Marty's rivalry with Biff was even like deepened. You know, in this movie, and it was really kind of fun to see Biff kind of like emerge as an even greater antagonist in the series.
Yeah, I agree.
And they even set up everything for the third film in this movie.
Yep.
You know, they set up Wild Dog Tana, and they talk about the bulletproof vest. They you know, Doc has his whole thing about like, you know, the big mystery of the universe, women, you know, stuff like that. So it's kind of fun to see his, you know, see the evolution and the setup and payoff and stuff like that. That just goes into a really well-written story.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the reasons I like the sequel so much, Back to the Future Part 2, is the fact that it does everything that a good sequel should and sets up everything for the big finale. And I don't know, I really love this movie.
Yeah.
It's my favorite of the trilogy.
I enjoyed the second half. The first half I could make some changes to, but the overall story, what I really like about this too is, like you were saying, they were setting up everything. This felt like they had written the entire script for part 2 and part 3 at the same time, and they made sure everything was mapped out beforehand instead of just like winging it.
This isn't my favorite of the 3 movies. In fact, it's my least favorite of the 3. But you can definitely tell that they took their time and put some work into this, so it all kind of made sense, you know. And I don't really have an issue with the story or anything. There's just something about it that just doesn't jive with me as well. I don't know, but it's weird because, you know, they filmed the second one and the third one back to back, And I really enjoyed the third one.
Oh, the third one's great. I can't wait to talk about it.
So
Speaking of which, let's do final thoughts, wrap up part 2. Jude, final thoughts on Back to the Future part 2.
You can find me at I am Jude on Instagram and Twitter.
there you go.
All right. V, you kind of already gave your final thoughts.
I don't have a whole lot more to add.
Okay.
It's just, it's the weakest of the 3.
Okay.
But it's still fun. It's still good.
Right on. Kadish, any final thoughts you have? You want to polish off part 2?
I think you're all crazy if you think that this is the best of the trilogy.
The best?
Really?
best,
You
yeah.
are out of your mind.
Get out of here.
I was going to say Wonder Twin Power, but I don't know if
Don't you ever.
She's gonna
That's our thing.
She's going to throw a star at me.
Yeah, no Wonder
Our
Twins
thing.
for you.
No.
What else? What are comic book
get 'em.
characters?
Power of a water bucket.
What?
Hey,
That's what Wonder Twins do.
mastication, brother.
There we
No,
go.
that's me.
Whoa.
I'm the master masticator.
Whoa.
Okay, yeah.
Whoa.
So listen, they have to steal our stuff. They're
Get your own shit.
yeah, get your own shit. Get your own writer.
I got my own shit right here.
Yeah, you can have that.
Oh, I got to stop using that. It's too much. All right. Okay, yeah, final thought. I enjoy this movie. What are you doing? Oh, my gosh. She's in
Oh god, that's terrible.
I got a cup it for you, Jude. There you go.
Jesus Christ. Oh, we were gonna put it on YouTube. Now it's got to go.
We're gonna get a call from Kevin Conroy and be like, "Can you guys please stop doing that?"
Yeah, he's a fan of the show, by the way.
Oh man! All
I
right,
regret nothing.
that's it. That's it
Conroy.
for part 2.
Now we have to open up a OnlyFans.
For the Batman statue.
Yeah, just different angles.
How are we gonna desecrate the statue today?
The $20 Patreon tier, you get your name right on the package.
Stop it!
Yeah. And you
Quit
can,
it!
you can choose which member of the
God.
podcast you want to do things to us.
I'm not doing nothing to him.
I love it. All right, guys. Before we move on to part 3, a real quick word from our sponsors. Welcome back, everybody, for part 3 of our Back to the Future trilogy talk. Real quick, if you guys would like to support the podcast, go to saltynerdclub.com, join our Patreon team. There you can get exclusive access to all kinds of cool stuff like podcasts, pictures, behind-the-scenes photos, and, of course, our Discord app. You can get access to the Patreon chat room, which we're really pushing. If you guys would like to sit down and talk with us or talk nerd stuff or just join the community of listeners that we have, go to our Discord. We'd really appreciate it. We'd love to see you there, and we would love to chat.
It's really kind of weird because there's been a few new people join the Discord, and they're like, "Oh man, you're like a celebrity."
And
I'm like, dude, stop your shit right now because I am no celebrity. It's like you're gonna make my head swell up way bigger. It's like,
we
no,
do
for real.
Also, patrons are the only ones who get their names on Batman's package.
Yeah.
So.
right there,
Is that a
guys.
thing? Is that what we're doing?
It's going to be a thing. We're making it a thing.
man.
There's price of reason.
There are so many people out there wanting to do the $50 tier just to be on Batman's package.
Nick,
Jesus.
Nick and Haas, shout out to Haas right there, buddy. No, but we have a ton of fun hanging out and chatting with our patrons and our other listeners. So join our Discord, and if you want to support us, join our saltynerdclub.com Patreon team. Cool. All right, let's get into the movie. Back to the Future Part 3. So to polish off Back to the Future Part 2, Doc gets struck by lightning while hovering above Marty after the storm hits the clock tower.
1.21 gigawatts sends him right back to the Old West.
1885. And Marty figures out a way that he has to go back and find the DeLorean that's hidden in a cave. I'm sorry. I'm doing your job for some reason, Jude. I'm so sorry.
Can if you want to.
No, I'm not as good as you. So,
you want me to?
Jude, take it away.
It's just I feel like you were just on a roll. I
He really likes this movie.
This might be my favorite one. All right, go ahead, Jude. What happens in part 3 of Back to the Future?
Well, we have to play the game first, right?
Back
What
to
game
the,
is that?
How much money did this movie make?
Oh, she's going to do it. Yeah, go ahead.
the box game.
The
Packages and boxes. Okay, Back to the Future Part 3 came out in 1990. It was rated PG with a runtime of 1 hour, 58 minutes. All right.
I haven't got a single F-bomb in yet.
All right, with a budget of $40 million, which was the same as Part 2.
Yep.
What do you think it brought in the box?
More than the second one.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
What was part 2?
It was
330 something, right?
13 or 318.
I think this one was better.
Okay.
So I'm going to go like 340.
Alex?
I agree.
Okay. 244.5.
Oh,
Way
it made
It
less?
did, yeah.
Well,
I think the second one was so shitty that people didn't want to come out for the third.
It's Back to the Future fatigue.
Yeah.
Oh,
Back to the Future fatigue.
You blame
Exactly.
Kathleen Kennedy. She produced all
You
these movies anyway.
That's right. Kathleen Kennedy did produce.
She did produce all these movies.
Hate
So,
her.
Starting where we left off in 1955, Marty is trapped in the past while Doc was transported even further back in the past by a bolt of lightning to the year 1885. Marty must get the help of the Doc from 1955 to help find the buried DeLorean and restore it. The 1885 Doc sends a letter to Marty in 1955 telling him where to find and how to restore the DeLorean with instructions to go back to Marty's own time and destroy the timeline and not to try and rescue him from 1885. So this is Marty's plan until he finds Doc's headstone detailing how Doc dies of a gunshot to the back by Buford Tannen a week after sending Marty the letter. So Marty must now go rescue Doc from Biff's early ancestor. Unfortunately, the time machine took an arrow to the fuel line upon re-entry to 1885, so Doc and Marty need to figure out how to get the DeLorean up to 88 miles per hour without using gasoline. And they have to figure it out before they run out of time because Doc is getting shot on Monday.
They could have made gasoline, right?
Well, we
They
discussed
tried.
this. I had a live watch party with a couple of members of the Patreon and also the league, and we discussed this at length. That if Doc could have made enough moonshine, which is enough of whatever the ignition temperature would have been able to been suitable for gasoline, he could have used the DeLorean. But
Wrong.
Because
They tried that.
No, they used whiskey. They didn't use moonshine.
They did use whiskey, but I think it takes longer to ferment moonshine than they had.
That's what we came to. We said they only had
because basically they had until Monday.
Yeah. So they wouldn't have been able to distill enough of a potent moonshine, which I think can be used.
I think by the time Marty found Doc and then they found the DeLorean, they had 3 days.
Yeah.
But I'd like to point out that this is another reason why these movies are so well structured, is that every single movie has a ticking clock in it. Like they have to get something done before a certain period of time in order for it to work.
Yeah.
And so like whenever you add that kind of time crunch into a story, it adds a sense of urgency, a sense of tension. Exactly. So like, in the third movie, the whole kind of time constraint was we got to get it done before Monday because that's when you get killed, basically. And, in the first movie, it's like we have to have it done before the lightning strikes the clock tower. And in the second movie, it's basically like the same thing. Like we have to do this before like the clock tower gets, hit by lightning again. So, I mean, like there's so many great elements to these movies that just make them so much fun to watch. And the whole time constraint thing, like have to get it done before Monday. That's one of them.
Yeah. For me, part 3 rivals the first movie for being my favorite.
Okay.
I think it's solely just the setting. I'm a sucker for a Western.
Yeah, I think it's
and when you put these beloved characters that I've been watching for years and I love them so much and you put them in that Western setting, I fall in love with it. It's so much fun. And I think arguably we talked about Biff and the actor who plays him being so incredibly good at his job at playing this character. I think in the second movie, the futuristic Biff, the 2015 Biff was kind of annoying, but the alternate 85 Biff, like the
Buford.
Buford,
Forfeit. What's forfeit?
The Donald Trump version of Biff was good. Whoa. Oh, come on. Like,
Stop
it's not
calling him that.
It is what it is. It was the 80s. It was Trump. It was the money man, the casino owner. It was Trump.
The funny part about that was that when the hot tub scene where Thomas F. Wilson was old Biff in the hot tub, the heat from the water kept melting his prosthetics.
Anyway, like all these different versions of Biff, I think Mad Dog Buford Tannen is by far
Mad Dog.
He pulls,
People call me
pulls
Mad
it
Dog.
off so well, man. He nails that role.
Yeah.
The old Western bully, black hat villain. I freaking
and
love it.
And he kind of plays him a little over the top.
Oh, of course he does.
So I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
What kind of stupid name is that?
Yeah. Clint Eastwood.
Can we talk about how Thomas F. Wilson, like, he was the one who ad-libbed the whole, like, butthead and make like a tree and get out of here and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Like
He
that,
ad-libbed that?
Yeah, that wasn't originally in the script. That was actually like him coming up with that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Leave, you idiot.
Yeah, because like as a character, he was like, I want to play Biff kind of dumb, but at the same time intimidating.
Yeah.
You know? And it's also funny because, like, you know, Buford, you know, Mad Dog Tannen in this one, when he's counting to 10, he like forgets what comes after 6.
I love it. So yeah, that's really what sells me. The setting sells me on this movie. The Buford Mad Dog Tannen as a villain sells it for me. Like
ZZ Top.
The music is amazing in
yeah.
this episode, in this part 3 too.
You know what's funny about ZZ Top's appearance is, like, they were just hanging out on set that day, and they were like, "Hey, do you
As
wanna-"
bands will do.
Yeah.
Well, they were visiting the set. I think they were shooting some type of music.
Oh, okay. All right. I got you.
But they were on there, and Michael J. Fox was like, "Hey, would you guys get up and, like, you know, play a song?"
Dun, 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 no.
And it actually turned out like one of the cameras broke, and so like ZZ Top just held like an impromptu like concert as they were trying to fix the camera, and everyone was having so much fun. Robert Zemeckis just was like,
hit record.
No, he didn't hit record. He was like, "Well, the camera's been fixed for like a few hours, but we're just going to keep, you know, going
That's
on
awesome.
with this party."
Yeah. No, this movie. This movie's so much freaking fun.
I think I would have been happy if they had just skipped part 2 and just made this part 2.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have made it work too.
Yeah, maybe a little.
Did you guys-
Little
maneuvering.
adjustments.
Did you guys recognize the saloon at all?
It was like in every Western ever made saloon.
Yeah, I don't know.
It didn't
Tell
seem
us
pretty generic to
what
me.
are we supposed to be?
Well, this was shot on the Universal backlot, obviously. What else was shot on the Universal backlot? It was a movie we've done a podcast about, Cowboys and Aliens. That was the same saloon from Cowboys and Aliens.
Get out of here.
That's cool.
That is super cool. I love that movie. I know everybody else hates it, but I love that movie.
Probably in Westworld or something too.
You think so?
I say the same thing.
No, this is, like I said, it rivals the first movie for being my favorite. Just the setting and the characters themselves, and Marty going back to the 1800s. It's just so much freaking fun.
Yeah.
And we discuss. I mean, we're kind of skipping to the end, but the practical sets that they use with the steam train and all that stuff. It's just it sells everything about
The
this movie.
whole setup. It's like, okay, well, we got to go around this corner and it's going to pick up speed.
Yeah.
It's going to point of no return to here, and then it's
Yeah.
going to fall off into the abyss.
It helps build that tension and everything. So this for me,
You're not thinking fourth dimensionally, Marty.
I love it. This for me is just so much fun, and I think it's a fantastic ending to this trilogy.
Well, you also have to point out that, so in the second movie, Marty's kind of character arc kind of came to an end. Not necessarily the whole chicken thing, because he still has a bit of an arc in this movie, but they actually shifted the focus from the McFlys to the Browns in this film. And so this is more of Doc's movie than it is Marty's.
Yeah, and I like that change. Again, we talked about the recasting and everything, and I kind of wish they would have strayed away from using Michael J. Fox so much with all the characters just repeating themselves. It kind of gets tired after a little while. But, I mean, they had to there's behind-the-scenes nonsense that kind of took effect into that. But V, what about V? I don't know why I keep calling you V. Matt, what did you think about this? What did you think about part 3 of this movie?
Part 3 is really, like you said, it's right there of being my favorite. I mean, it's not going to quite hit that.
Yeah.
But I just this is an enjoyable movie to me. It's like far superior to episode 2 or chapter
Part 2.
And I don't know why in my head. I just enjoyed it more. I like the story more. I like the setting more. You know, the characters were more fun
Yeah.
to me for some reason. And I enjoyed the climax with the train and everything. It just was an overall more enjoyable experience
Then
for
part
me
2.
for me to watch than part 2 was.
Right
Yeah.
on. Jude, what about you? What do you think about part 2? Or I'm saying part 3 of Back to the Future.
You can find me at... No, I'm kidding.
Oh, come on.
No, I like this one too. It's not better than the first one for me.
Okay.
But it's way better than the second one for me.
Yeah.
And sorry, I gotta try and keep the dog quiet. It's way better than the second one for me, and I do like all of the Old West stuff. I love the love story between Doc and Clara.
Oh, yeah.
It's so adorable. I'm a sucker for things that are adorable. That's why I love Kadish. No, I like it. I think it's a well-rounded movie. I think it's a complete story. I am probably, if I had never seen the first or second one, I think I would probably be fine just watching this one by itself. Yeah, I like it. Way better than the second. I love his stupid pink cowboy outfit getting there.
You know what I gotta say though is my favorite version of the DeLorean is the one with the white wall tires. That thing looks freaking slick, dude. Telling you,
those 1950s tires.
Yeah, give me that freaking Hot Toys collection.
I love that like Marty is coming from the year 1885. Like that's his timeline. So when he gets
1985.
I'm sorry, 1985. Yeah. So when he gets to 1885, what he thinks of as the Old West is like so not correct. And he's like, Clint Eastwood is a badass. And fringe and cowboy hat and red jeans.
Yeah.
Like he gets there and he's like, yeah, I can probably pull this off pretty good. I'm Marty freaking McFly. And everybody's like, what kind of dork are you?
Yeah.
I like how he looks at like the Frisbee pie pan.
Oh, Frisbee.
And
far
he's
out.
Like, far out. And everyone's like, what's the big deal?
Leah Thompson goes, it was right in front of him. Just little things like that. It's a good story, right?
Kadish, what are your thoughts on part 3 of Back to the Future?
So this is my least favorite of the trilogy.
You are a crazy person.
Yeah, for me, it goes 2, 1, 3.
Wow.
But I think that the reason I don't like it as much is the fact that the focus is more on Doc than Marty. Marty's always been the protagonist kind of carrying us through. The Old West setting, you know, like the filmmakers specifically just use this as an excuse because they wanted to do a Western. I feel like the Old West setting is so vastly different from what we've had before.
That's what I love about it.
Yeah, I mean, like it works for some people. For me personally, like I would have rather seen something different. You know, the original concept for this was they were going to go back to ancient Rome.
That's a bit much.
Yeah, it really was. But you know, the whole movie being set in the Old West, it was interesting, but like I was never into it as much as the future stuff. Like I really enjoyed the future stuff a lot more than going back to the past. So for me, like this is just not a movie that when I think of the Back to the Future trilogy, like this is kind of like in the back of my mind as opposed to the other two films.
Wow.
That's very good.
I have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
So it's for Kadish.
Oh, okay.
So when you see a movie that's set in the future that has already passed in our timeline, do you get irritated by it being incorrect, or do you get a kick out of it?
I get a kick out of it.
Okay.
Like
That makes sense.
I actually like for
That was the
instance,
wrong answer.
when we watch Escape from New York or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like the far future of 2009.
Or even Blade Runner now.
Yeah.
Blade Runner is set in the past now for us.
Like to me, I find that endearing because I can remember as a kid watching this stuff and having like that far future of 2015 and stuff like that. You know, it's something that's kind of kitschy to me because it's like it's a snapshot of what we used to think the future would be like. So to me, that's not a bothersome thing.
I think we're all supposed to be like cyborgs and cannibals by now.
I wonder if you did like if you went back and you looked at like all the movies that were made in like the 60s and 70s and even the 80s, if you could like make a list of movies set in the future that got the most stuff correct.
Star Trek. Communicators.
Well, to Star Trek, because we're still 200 years from Star Trek.
We're getting there though.
But
yeah, I guess Blade Runner would be the Blade Runner and
Angry Red Planet.
Angry Red Planet. There we go.
I'd have to think about that.
Yeah,
but
you idiots keep asking me to go get you
it'd be fun
sandwiches.
like 2001, 2010, A Space Odyssey, you know, those kind of movies, you know, like legit, like
we have AI
space
and-
exploration movies, that kind of stuff. Alien. I don't know.
So you know the part in this movie where basically the mayor shows up, and Doc Brown is kind of buddy with the mayor. They tried to get Ronald Reagan to come and play the mayor because Reagan was a huge fan of the first movie, and they referenced him in the first movie, and so they thought it'd be fun to kind of
Because he's an
him.
actor.
Yeah, he used to be an actor. Kind of convince him to come out of retirement and do it, but at the time he was suffering from Alzheimer's so badly that he basically passed up the offer. But I think Reagan, like if he had a cameo in this movie as the mayor,
that would have been so cool.
That would have been awesome.
All right. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about my favorite moments in this movie. I think we could discuss the whole setting. I really love the setting. I think Mad Dog Tannen is by far the best villain.
I love where he's trying to schedule killing Marty.
Yeah.
How about Monday? Are we doing anything Monday?
I do my killing before breakfast. Oh, yeah, well, I do my killing after breakfast.
And then he like makes his cohorts get up early. He's like, I'm hungry.
I'm hungry. Yeah, I think the villain in this movie is probably by far my favorite out of even the first one. Biff was great in all three, but this one to me really stands out as the black hat villain cowboy. I just...
You want to hear something interesting about Mad Dog Tannen?
Tell me something interesting.
Is he a real person in history?
No, he's not. Oh. But so in the original cut of this movie, Mad Dog Tannen kills Marshall Strickland by shooting him in the back, like straight up murders him.
Okay.
And they decided it was too dark for what they wanted to have in this movie, so they cut it out. And that's why Strickland's deputy is the one who arrests him at the end instead of Marshall Strickland coming back. Is because in the original cut, Strickland was dead. So
I know I heard there was a deleted scene about that, but yeah, cool. Right on. You guys want to hear something else very interesting about this movie?
Yes.
Michael J. Fox almost died while filming the hanging scene at the clock tower.
Oh my God.
It was like what happened to Brendan Fraser on The Mummy.
Yep.
Where basically they
really?
were hanging.
Yeah. So they had Michael J.
crazy.
Fox. They had the thing around his, like the harness that held his weight. Well, the harness had too much slack in it. So when they lifted him up, they actually lifted him by his throat. So when you see the scene in the movie of Michael J. Fox like choking and turning purple,
legit choking.
It's legit choking. I think he passed out.
Yeah, he did.
I believe he passed out during that scene, and they didn't know that he wasn't acting until after they called cut, and he didn't move, and they were like, "Oh shit, we get him down, get him down."
You know what? I hear so
Get
many.
this man a Pepsi.
So many of these stories where like they thought he was just acting.
Yeah.
Like Brandon Lee.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like hopefully like movie people have created like a hand signal to go with like I'm dying. Like I'm not acting.
Yeah.
Like hopefully like okay, here's our safe word. It's this.
I know.
If you're dying, do this.
For the most part nowadays, I think they almost exclusively go with stunt actors for those kinds of scenes.
I think you're right.
Unless you're Tom Cruise.
Unless you're Tom Cruise or another actor who like just insists on doing the action themselves. Like I know
Tom Cruise, I'm going to space. And
Yeah. I'm waiting for that to happen. I know he
no,
broke
it's
his.
happening. It's happening.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is that official?
That's real.
I don't need no helmet either.
Good
I'm
for
Tom
him.
Cruise.
I'm gonna breathe in space.
I'm the Maverick.
He's a psychopath.
He's awesome. Yeah. So that was an interesting like in the.
If anyone in our time has actual superhero powers
Tom
or
Cruise.
superpowers, it's Tom Cruise.
Oh, he's a vampire. We've discussed this before.
No, dude, it's the Scientology.
Shh, we're not allowed to talk about that.
You're gonna get us canceled.
It's the aliens from Xenu, dude.
Jude's like, we're gonna be killed. All right,
I didn't say nothing, Tom Cruise.
We'll have Leah Remini on the show.
Vader. What's your standout moments for part 3?
Probably the end, like I said.
The train.
The train scene.
God, the train's so good, dude.
Yeah, it's really good.
I love that it's practical and that they use like a full-size train for most of those scenes. And then for the big crash, they use a miniature, which I think, especially in the 1990 when this movie came out, there's no way that they would have been able to pull that off with CGI.
Yeah, the train scene. And, like you said, Buford, he cracks me up. It's a fun movie.
Yeah. The references to old Clint Eastwood movies in this one was really great too.
Did you guys notice much like the Twin Pine Mall going from Twin Pine to Lone Pine? When he emerges in the future of 1985, it goes from Clayton Ravine to Eastwood Ravine.
Yeah.
And they even asked Clint Eastwood before they shot this movie. They're like, "Is it okay if we use your name?"
Well, they learned their lesson from
no,
the sequel.
This happened, concurrently, but like they just went to Clint Eastwood and they were like, "Hey, is it cool if we reference you?" And Eastwood was like, "Yeah,
Go ahead.
Make my day.
okay.
Make my day."
Yeah.
I'm the pale
take
rider.
it.
I love
Jude,
Clint Eastwood.
what are your general thoughts on part 3 and what are your favorite moments?
You already asked me that.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I'm getting confused. I'm sorry. Kadish, what about you? Well, you already said 2, didn't you?
not really."
No? Okay, go
Because I
ahead.
hate this movie.
I
This
actually,
is my least favorite. I'm sorry.
I really enjoy the stuff in the town.
Okay.
Like you see like all these little things, like for instance, the manure company, in
A. Jones.
in 1885, it's A. Jones. In 1955, it's D. Jones. So like, like it's a family business, the manure company. You've got
manure.
You've got there's a horse dealership, that's owned by the Statlers.
Oh,
in
yeah.
1885.
There's Statler
And then there's
Toyota,
Statler
right?
Toyota in 1985 and 1955, Statler Motor, Studebakers. So like there's just a lot of like the saloon is where like the diner is and stuff like that. So there's just like a lot of like little stuff that's like, consistent throughout, all three of these movies. That's like a lot of fun to watch. The moonwalking scene where Buford's making Michael Jackson dance or
Michael J. Fox.
Marty McFly dance. And he's like,
Doing the moonwalk.
yeah, he's like, dance, runt, dance. And Marty just starts doing the moonwalk, and everyone's just like, what? And I also like the part where Marty is having like his little standoff during like the party, like the big unveiling of the clock tower.
Yeah.
And he kind of says something to the guys, and Biff is like, that's mighty strong language there.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, lighten up, jerk.
He looks at his friends like, what did he just say to me?
Yeah, like they're totally confused.
Yeah.
But then he's like, that's mighty strong language.
From a runt like you. Yeah. It's good. This movie is just so much fun, dude. From beginning to end, I have
And Doc's
a
ice
blast.
machine.
Oh, yeah. The giant mechanism that
Ice
creates
tea?
ice tea. And he's so satisfied with himself when he holds his little glass up. He's so like, I did it.
I want to know how at the end of the movie, when the train version of the time machine shows up, all they needed to do to travel back in time was harness steam power. That's how that works.
So,
No plutonium.
I mean, we're cutting
needed.
way to the end here.
Yeah.
But I guess the only thing I can think of is he built a train that was capable of going 80 miles an hour. And then he managed to get into the future. And then once he was in the future...
Don't you need plutonium to get the flux capacitor to flux?
Flux capacitor.
I don't know how he made a flux capacitor in 1885 anyway. Unless he...
He had to have.
Hold on. No. Hold on.
Because they took.
There's 2 DeLoreans in the 1885 timeline.
Yeah, but if he messed with that one that he left for Marty, then Marty would have never gotten it.
Unless he did it after Marty left.
Well, no, you needed to keep that one that was in the mine there pristine for Marty to use in order for him to come
1955.
back.
Plot hole. We found another plot hole.
Oh my God, nerds!
Nitpicking nerds.
Unless he somehow mined for uranium and was able to, make it himself. But I don't know, like how.
It's Doc Brown, man. I don't know.
I mean, we have
done.
trains now that go 200 miles an hour. So,
Yeah.
I
Maybe
mean, if anybody could figure it out in 1885,
It would be
it's
Doc Brown.
Dr. Emmett
Did you guys
Lathrop
know
Brown.
that the original time machine was supposed to be a refrigerator?
Yeah, they talked about
did hear
doing
about
that,
that.
all different things. I'm really glad that they went with a car.
Yeah, basically it was like this chamber that you'd be in that was a refrigerator, and they had to be at a nuclear blast site. In fact, they took the idea and put it in the kind of spec script for this mythical movie that was supposed to have been made but never existed, called Indiana Jones 4.
What is this? What is this nonsense?
I know it's
I
something.
don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about either. This movie doesn't exist.
No, it doesn't exist. But the idea was repurposed for the idea for this movie.
Wow, what a terrible idea that would be.
That would have been
if anybody ever
Stop
made.
it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
She's going full WandaVision. She's just glitching out.
That's right.
All right. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. This is like right there. This is above number 2 for me. I love the setting. I love everything about it. Doc Brown's love relationship. We should talk about that for a minute. Jude, you mentioned that early on that you love that aspect.
Clara Clayton.
Clara and Doc Brown
Mary
fall madly in
Steenburgen.
love. This is Doc
At
Brown's
first sight.
his biggest mystery of the universe is women, and he learns all about them in this movie and about love and all that stuff. So
We also
Finds
get
love.
to see Doc's drinking problem.
one whiskey and that's it. That's all he can handle.
And what was in that sober up drink?
Oh, it
Bunch
was
of hot sauce.
It was Tabasco sauce. It was
Coffee.
coffee, salt. What else did they put out
Kiss.
there? Huh?
Piss.
No, pickle juice.
Pickle juice.
Pickle juice was the other one. Yeah, it was a weird concoction.
It's called wake up juice, right?
Yeah, yeah. And he looked so excited when he was like, "Oh, we're gonna make some wake up juice." Like, how many times have you done this?
He never gets to.
Yeah, it's like that once a year thing where he has to wake somebody up. It was weird.
All he gets to do is just like shine a glass with a rag and like throw a bottle to the end of the bar.
What did Marty ask for when he first got to the bar? He's
Ice water.
Ice water, and
Come on, man.
We don't serve ice water here. We serve whiskey. And he poured. I mean, it feels like the podcast. Like that guy.
I do love how throughout the entire series, like they're just product placing, like Pepsi.
Yeah.
like Pepsi free, that doesn't even exist anymore. It's now like caffeine free Pepsi, and stuff like that.
Well, Michael J. Fox was like a huge spokesperson for Pepsi, right?
Yeah, he was their primary spokesperson.
Yeah.
Tab.
Tab.
I'll have a tab.
I can't get you a tab until you order something, kid.
They don't make Tab anymore.
No,
Thank God.
they make an energy drink called Tab, don't they? It's a different thing. I don't think it's Pepsi anymore, though. Anyway, all right, that's enough. Gosh, I feel like we're kind of shorthanding this part three.
I don't.
It's my favorite one, but what else is there to talk about?
We've talked about it when we're talking about the other movies.
Yeah, kind of.
I mean, like all these movies follow the same basic story structure.
Yeah.
They have all the same basic characters. They have all the basic same set pieces, pretty much.
Yeah,
you know, like they're all like the exact same story, just told in a slightly different way. And I do think that this was a fitting kind of ending to the saga, the trilogy. You know, I just personally, I didn't think the Old West thing worked for me.
Oh, I love it, but I will say this: there's one thing that I wish they wouldn't have done. I don't like Doc Brown with the magic train time machine at the end. I really feel like they would have been better suited to just leave Doc Brown living his life with his family and have Marty find out about that like they did with the letter. Like he sends him a photo with his family and a letter, and it's like voiceovered by Christopher Lloyd, and it's just like, "Hey, Marty."
I've always kind of liked that.
The train thing,
the flying
really?
train at the end.
But he was like upset that he invented the time machine.
Yeah, he wanted it destroyed.
He wanted to destroy it because he was causing too many problems. But then he goes back and makes another one. It just, to me, like I understand why they did it because they wanted like that whole like, you know, the adventure continues kind of aspect to it. But I felt like it was off character for him, and I think it was a little hijink, like a little bit too much of a stretch for me.
Can we talk about Flea for a second?
The Red Hot Chili Peppers guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was Needles.
Yeah.
So that was kind of Marty's big arc, was like they introduced in the second movie this character trait of him, you know, people can't call him chicken because like he refuses to.
He doesn't want to be seen as a coward.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be seen as a coward. I think that kind of stems from him seeing his father being picked on his whole life, that type of thing. Of course, they could have set that up a little bit better. And it would have been nice if that had been in the first movie too. But we kind of see in the future of 2015 how that type of thing ruins his life, where like, you know, he keeps getting goaded into doing bad stuff by being called a chicken. And finally he overcomes this in his showdown with, you know, Buford Tannen. Yeah. And it's a good like kind of end to that character arc. And then finally we see him make the right decision where it influences his future for the better. And in a weird way, it's almost like there's this hand of fate in these movies that is kind of taking stuff that's been broken and fixing it. And it's a very heartwarming kind of feeling. I think that's one of the reasons why it's so fun to watch these movies, because they just make you feel good.
Yeah, it's a nice life lesson.
Everything ends up okay.
That's actually one of my favorite lines in this movie too, where everybody's like, if you don't go out there, you're going to be labeled a coward forever. And he's like, he's an asshole, you know, like that's a great line. And it's a great life lesson for like, you don't have to get goaded in by people to do things that you don't want to do or that you know is going to go wrong. Like just ignore them and move on. I mean, it's prevalent today. It's prevalent back in the 80s. It's a good life lesson. And I like the character arc that Marty had.
I like these movies because it's one of the, well, I mean, there's plenty of them, but it's a series of movies that everybody can enjoy, and you can sit down and you can watch with your kids. Yeah. And everybody have fun and get something out of it, you know, and can't do that with a lot of different movies these days. So
yeah, they all have too many F-bombs and sexual innuendos.
It's like if my kids came down for a visit, I would have no problem sitting down and watching these movies.
In fact, Bob Gale, I think, you know, he was asked what he thought of Rick and Morty, which is kind of like a cartoon take on these characters.
For sure.
And he was like, it's too R-rated for my liking.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, all three of these movies were PG. They're all very family friendly with the exception of a few like curse words or whatever. But there's no like hardcore violence or sex or anything like that. And I thought that was a very interesting take coming from him because, you know, because these movies are so accessible to people of all ages and families and stuff like that, they get so much more play than something that would be like rated R.
Imagine that, guys.
Yep.
Imagine being able to be listened to by everybody.
PG movies are good. They've done well.
Yeah, Star Trek should take note, I think.
Podcast too.
Hey, I've been really good today.
You guys have been great.
I haven't masticated once. Okay.
All right, guys, let's polish this up. Let's just do final thoughts on the whole trilogy. For me, I absolutely love this trilogy. It is a staple of my nerd fandom and of my life, and I look forward to passing on this trilogy to my kids and being able to watch it with them and so on and so forth. I think it's classic. I 100% truly appreciate the fortitude that the producers have of not passing this off to some studio just to make a buck on a freaking sequel or a reboot or nothing. Like, they're holding tight to this treasure and they're not letting anybody abuse it. And I absolutely love them for that.
Yep.
That is the one thing that I think Hollywood and studios themselves need to learn from, is like, when you have this perfect little franchise, don't just go selling it for $1 and ruining it and end up having people like dilute it down to something not that it's not worthy of. So Lucasfilm, take note. Vader, what's your thoughts on this final trilogy, on the Back to the Future trilogy?
I think I already kind of said everything I needed to say. They're good films. They're enjoyable. They're fun, wholesome family entertainment. You know, they're just what they are. They're good. Yeah. You know, they're not top tier for me, but like I said before, but they're classics. Right. And, you know, I can sit here and I can watch these movies anytime without hesitation.
Right on.
So,
Jude, thoughts on the Back to the Future trilogy? Is it going to continue on in your life, and you're just going to continue to watch it over and over again and never get tired of it?
I watch the first one routinely. I don't think I watch 2 and 3 hardly ever. But for me, it goes 1, 3, 2.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with Jude.
Same.
Yep. Kadish, final thoughts on the trilogy of Back to the Future?
I think that these are amazing movies. It's a top tier trilogy. People who just love to be entertained, you can't go wrong with this. You know, these 3 movies, and people who like to study storytelling and filmmaking and stuff like that, like I do, you could do worse than the Back to the Future trilogy. Like this really is a masterclass in how to tell a long form trilogy, how to plan out a trilogy, how to, you know, do character arcs right, how to do comedy, how to do family friendly stuff, like how to do adventure films, how to, you know, introduce, you know, setup and payoff, how to introduce obstacles to your characters, like. Everything that you need to know as a storyteller is in these 3 films. And so like, I feel like, you know, I should be watching these movies once a year at least.
Just to remind yourself.
Just to remind myself, but also just to enjoy everything, because these are such classic movies. You can watch these 3 movies at any point, any number of times, and be as entertained the 32nd time you've seen it as you were the first time. And so I would highly recommend them to anyone out there who hasn't seen them.
Right on. All right, guys, that's it for our Back to the Future trilogy. Thank you guys for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the show. Real quick, before we get out of here, if you would like to support this podcast, go to our Discord. There you can chat with us. Salty Nerd Podcast on Discord. You can find our server and hang out.
Leave us reviews.
Leave us reviews on iTunes, or if you want to actually support the podcast financially and help us get our equipment set up and ready to go so that we can do live podcasts on YouTube, go to saltynerdclub.com and join our awesome Patreon team. There you will get exclusive access to extra podcasts, behind the scenes photos, Batman's package, advanced show notes, and all kinds of cool stuff. So that's saltynerdclub.com. All right, before we leave, where can we find everybody on the social, starting with the Barbarian Space Viking? Where can they find you at?
I am out there at MattVader74 on Twitch playing some games, and the Twitter and the
YouTube.
Yeah. I make really terrible videos there. And what else? Instagram sometimes, Parlor,
all
Gab,
the places.
whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Wherever.
Is Parlor shut down?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I don't know.
They're working their shit out.
Yeah.
Jude, where can they find you at?
You can find me at I am Jude Juju on Instagram and Twitter.
Right on. And Matthew Kadish, where can they find you?
You can find me at Matthew Kadish, Kadish, on Twitter, and kadishbooks.com if you want to check out my books on Amazon.
Right on, guys. And I am the Salty Nerd, your host, and you can catch me on Discord mostly. Go to the Discord, go to our server, and I will get a notification when you show up, and I will be able to chat with you and talk about movies and all kinds of cool stuff and podcasts.
They have to know where to go to get an invite for Discord.
No, they can pop in. It's a public server. And then I'll give them a role.
So how
it's a whole cool thing. Yeah. Try it out, man. Discord's awesome. Discord's awesome. And we're also doing watch parties on Discord. So if you would like to join us at least once a week, we're going to sit down and watch a movie with a bunch of other supporters and listeners. So go to our Discord and hang out. All right, guys, signing off. Salty Nerd Podcast. Thanks for listening. Have a good day.